Welcome to r/entitled people, where Karen spends years telling OP she needs plastic surgery, but really ends up regretting it. Karen demands I get plastic surgery for a wedding, so I exposed her for cheating. I'm 30, female, and I've been married to my husband for about 3 years now. My mother-in-law has always been a complete nightmare to deal with, but recently she completely crossed a line. Basically, she has this weird obsession with my face. Specifically, she's always made these passive-aggressive comments about my nose bridge, saying things like it's a bit too wide and that a quick little plastic surgery procedure would make me look so much better. For a long time, she'd always frame it as a joke or a playful suggestion, so I'd just laugh it off and say, yeah, maybe one day, just to keep the peace and move on. My husband never really backed me up either. Whenever I told him that it bothered me, he'd just say that's how his mom is, and that I should just ignore her because she doesn't mean anything by it. So I always just let it slide. But then my sister-in-law got engaged and everything went completely downhill. The wedding's coming up in a few months, and suddenly my nose became a national emergency to my mother-in-law. She started bringing up plastic surgery literally every single time I saw her or talked to her. She kept saying that the wedding photos are going to be passed down for generations and that she wants everyone looking their absolute best. It went from annoying jokes to her straight up telling me that I needed to get the surgery done before the big day. I kept telling her no and that I wasn't going to alter my face for a wedding, but she just wouldn't listen. Last week, I got a text from her out of nowhere. It was a confirmation screenshot for a consultation and a scheduled procedure at a local cosmetic clinic. She literally booked the appointment for me, paid the deposit, and texted me telling me exactly what day and time I needed to show up to get my nose done. I was completely stunned. When I showed my husband, he just laughed and said that his mom was just trying to be helpful in her own messed up way and asked if I could just go to the consultation to make her happy. I immediately called her up to tell her absolutely not, and that's when she completely lost her mind. She started screaming at me over the phone, calling me an ungrateful idiot for not getting my nose fixed when she was paying for it. Then she said the absolute meanest thing she could think of. She told me that's the exact reason why she never likes me being in any of their family photos, because my face looks ridiculous and I'm ruining the look of her family. That was the exact moment I decided to go completely nuclear. What my mother-in-law didn't know is that I've actually known a massive secret about her for years. A long time ago, way before we ever got married, my husband had a few drinks and confessed to me that he accidentally caught his mom cheating on his dad with a family friend when he was younger. He begged me never to bring it up because it would ruin their family, so I kept my mouth shut to protect them. But after she called me ridiculous and tried to force me into surgery, all of that loyalty went straight out the window. Since she was so worried about family photos, I decided to give her something else to think about. I gathered up a big group chat with my husband, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, and her fiancé, and the family friend that she had cheated with. I typed out a long message saying that since my mother-in-law was so obsessed with perfection and didn't want me in the wedding photos because of my looks, maybe we should talk about the real reason the family isn't perfect. Then I dropped the bomb and exposed the entire affair, naming the guy and detailing exactly how my husband caught them years ago. The group chat went dead silent for about 10 minutes, and then everything erupted at once. My father-in-law packed his bags and he left that night to stay at a hotel, and my sister-in-law is furious with her mom and has uninvited her from her wedding. My husband is mad at me for taking it this far, but honestly, I don't even care. This woman pushed and pushed until I couldn't take it anymore. Whatever happens next with her family is on her. Wow. While I totally get how much your mother-in-law upset you with that insane plastic surgery stuff, I still think you completely crossed the line here. She was being a total boundary-stomping nightmare, but that's still no reason to blow up a marriage over some cheating that happened years ago. Your husband told you because he trusted you with his family drama, not so you could keep it in your back pocket as a weapon for when you got mad. You completely overstepped by dragging your father-in-law and sister-in-law into this. They didn't do anything to you, and now you've permanently ruined his parents' marriage and your sister-in-law's wedding prep just because your feelings were hurt. You should have just dealt with your mother-in-law directly or given your husband an ultimatum to handle his mom instead of going completely nuclear and destroying the entire family. OP, I completely disagree with you. My mother-in-law didn't just upset me. She spent years harassing me, tearing down my confidence, and body-shaming me to the point where she literally tried to force a medical procedure on me. She thought she could treat me like a piece of garbage forever without any consequences. So no, I don't feel bad at all. She's the one who chose to cheat on her husband, not me. If she didn't want her marriage ruined, she probably shouldn't have been sleeping around with a family friend in the first place. She brought all of this on herself by being a terrible person, and I'm not going to sit here and play nice just to protect a liar who couldn't even respect my boundaries. Everyone in these comments judging you clearly doesn't have a toxic mother-in-law. I also have a mother-in-law who treats me like absolute dirt and constantly makes passive-aggressive digs at my appearance too, so I completely validate how you felt. When people like that push you for years, they don't get to act surprised when you finally snap. If I had dirt like that on my mother-in-law, I would absolutely use it to ruin her life too. She brought this entire thing on herself by being a bully and a cheater, and you just handed her the consequences of her own actions. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for finally standing up for yourself. Update 1 week later. So it's been about a week since everything went down, and honestly, things have somehow gotten even worse. I figured there would be some fallout, but I didn't expect to become the main villain in this whole story. First off, my sister-in-law flipped the script on me. Even though she was furious at her mom at first, she texted me a few days ago absolutely losing her mind. She told me that I'm a selfish, malicious psycho for ruining her wedding season and that I ruined her family right before her big day. She said that even though what her mom did was disgusting, I had no right to weaponize it just because my feelings were hurt over a nose job comment. So yeah, I'm officially uninvited from the wedding now. My husband is still invited, which has created this massive wall of tension in our house because he's actually considering going without me just to support his sister. Speaking of my husband, he's barely talking to me. He feels betrayed because that secret was something he told me in total confidence years ago, and he hates that I used his words against his mother. He spent the last few days staying with a friend because he said he couldn't stand looking at me right now. As for my mother-in-law, she's been sending me essays via text message. She went from threatening to sue me for defamation to begging me to tell everyone that I made it all up. Obviously, I didn't reply because the truth is already out, and my father-in-law has already hired a divorce lawyer. He actually called me privately to thank me for telling him, which is the only thing keeping me from feeling completely crazy right now, but he's a total wreck. So basically, my mother-in-law's life is totally ruined, my sister-in-law hates my guts and banned me from the wedding, and my husband might leave me. I still don't think I was wrong for standing up for myself after years of her insulting me, but I'm starting to wonder if going nuclear was actually worth it. Update. So it's been a month since my last update, and my entire life has completely fallen apart. I'm sitting here typing this while drinking my 5th glass of wine, which has basically become my nightly routine at this point, because I just don't know how else to cope with what's happening. My husband officially filed for divorce last week. I'm completely heartbroken. I've spent the last month begging him, crying, sending him endless texts, and trying literally everything I can think of to get him to just talk to me and change his mind. But he's totally cold. He says that trust is gone and he can never look at me the same way after I used his deepest family trauma as a weapon. He packed up the rest of his things and he's completely done with me. But the absolutely craziest, most frustrating part of this entire nightmare is what happened with his parents. A few days ago, I found out that my father-in-law forgave my mother-in-law. Apparently, they sat down, had a long talk, and decided to work through it. They're literally back together right now, acting like they're totally happy and moving past the affair. I feel like I'm living in some twisted parallel universe. I don't understand how my whole life fell apart when all I did was expose a toxic person who completely deserved to be exposed. She shamed me for years and tried to force me into surgery, yet she gets her husband back and gets to play the victim while I'm the one losing my marriage and my entire future? It's just not fair, and it doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm just so lost right now. I admit I've been drinking way too much lately just to numb the pain, but the reality keeps hitting me every morning. I never should have gone nuclear. I really didn't think things would turn out like this, and if I could go back in time and stop myself from sending that group text, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I thought I was standing up for myself, but instead, I just destroyed my own happiness. I remember your first post, and when I commented saying you went way overboard, I got absolutely bombed with dislikes, and you even replied telling me I was wrong. Well, look where we are now. It turns out you're the one who brought this on yourself. When someone is toxic towards you, it's so tempting to be toxic right back and try to ruin them. But when you stoop to their level, you're just inviting more chaos into your life. You thought you were the one punishing your mother-in-law, but you didn't care about how weaponizing that secret would hurt your husband or ruin your sister-in-law's wedding. Now your marriage is over because you wanted revenge. I really do hope things get better for you and that you can heal from this. But hopefully you learned a hard lesson about going nuclear. Update. It's been a year and a half since my entire world collapsed, and I never thought I'd be back here typing out an update with actual good news. For a really long time, life was completely horrible. Getting used to a quiet house and a completely different routine without my husband was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and there were so many nights where I just cried myself to sleep, wondering how I messed up my life so badly. But over time, the pain slowly started to fade away, and things actually started to feel better. I began to realize that there were some major positives to how everything turned out. For one, I never had to see or hear from my toxic mother-in-law ever again, which was a massive weight off my shoulders. I also started spending way more time with my actual friends, who were incredibly supportive of me through the whole divorce, instead of judging me like my ex's family did. Plus, since my ex-husband was severely allergic to cats and always refused to let me have one, I went out and got a kitten. I named him Shrimp, and he's honestly been my little rock through this whole transition. The biggest surprise, though, is that I ended up meeting an amazing guy about 6 months ago. He is absolutely nothing like my ex-husband, but different in the best ways possible. He actually listens to me, respects my boundaries, and stands up for what's right. Things are getting pretty serious between us now, and we're already starting to plan to get an apartment together soon. When I look back at where I was a year ago, I realize that everything in my life right now is so much better. It's crazy to think about, but it actually took the complete collapse of my marriage and my old life to get me to this point. I used to be so full of regret, but now when I look back at everything, it feels like maybe everything really does happen for a reason.
You know, Reddit boy, the true victim here is mother-in-law. OP got away with sabotaging their family photos for years. Mother-in-law offers to pay for the procedure, and as a thank you, she gets exposed for having a little fun with a family friend?
Oh, come on, Karen. I thought you turned from your evil ways.
I know, I'm just kidding. It's just fun to play devil's advocate every now and then. By the way, drop a thumbs up right now, or I'll be putting your manager in a chokehold.
But what if they want you to put their manager in a chokehold?
Well, in that case, hit the subscribe button too. That manager of yours will be needing even more therapy than I do by the time I'm done with him.
I snapped at my in-laws for saying my husband ruined his life. Context. I'm 36 female, and my husband, who's 36 male, comes from a family of athletes. Boxing was chosen for him very early in life. He was talented from the beginning, and everyone around him knew it. That became part of the problem. His parents wanted him to become a professional one day, and the older he got, the more pressure they put on him. By high school, it had become overwhelming. Coaches were brutal, promoters were paying attention, and outside trainers kept pushing him harder. His family saw fame, recognition, and a future they could be proud of. My husband saw a life that he didn't want. I met him a month before we started high school, and we've been together ever since, so I saw much of it firsthand. I saw how gifted he was. I also saw how unhappy he was carrying everyone else's expectations. What he wanted was university, an education, and a life outside the sport. His parents wanted him to go pro right after high school. He eventually attended a really good high school and later university, partly through scholarships he earned through boxing. He kept competing through university to keep that scholarship, but once he graduated, he stopped for good. That decision caused a major break with his family. They were estranged for years. Around the time he turned 30, they reached out and tried to reconnect. Things have been civil since then. Never especially close, never fully repaired, just manageable. My relationship with them has been more or less the same. This past Sunday, we took our children to visit them. The kids were outside playing, and my husband had gone out with his father and his brothers-in-law to pick up a few things. So I was inside with my mother-in-law, sisters-in-law, and their husbands. One of my sister-in-laws and her husband were talking about their son learning piano and how talented he seems for his age. Out of nowhere, my mother-in-law said,
"Be careful. You don't want to encourage him too early, only for him to quit and ruin his life like my son did."
The room went completely quiet. It felt like she forgot I was sitting right there. I stayed calm at first and asked her what she meant by that. I asked how exactly my husband had ruined his life. His sisters immediately jumped in, saying that wasn't what she meant, that I misunderstood and wouldn't understand. That's when I lost my patience. I told them, no, I don't understand. I don't understand why they wanted to live through him. I don't understand why they never listened when he told them what he wanted. I don't understand why they couldn't accept it or let him be his own person. I told them if they thought I didn't know how talented he was, they were wrong. I was there. I watched him earn scholarships. I watched people chase after him. I watched him work harder than anyone his age should have had to. And after all of that, he still chose a different life. Then I told them if he had walked away from boxing and done nothing with his life, maybe I'd understand their point. But that isn't what happened. He has a degree, an incredible career, built 2 successful businesses, is a great father and an amazing husband. He built a life most people would be proud of. I told them he's more successful than all of them combined, and if they truly believe that he ruined his life, I wanted them to explain exactly how. Complete silence. I took our children, left, and texted my husband that I was going home. He got back shortly after, and I told him everything. He's not upset with me. If anything, he's been smiling every time we talk about it. This is the first time I've personally heard them say something that direct out loud, though my husband later admitted he's felt for years that something still felt off with them, like maybe they never actually changed how they saw him. Apparently, his sisters also told their husbands a completely different version of why he was estranged from the family. According to them, he simply quit boxing and walked away from everyone who supported him. The reality is much messier than that. So now I'm wondering if I just blew up what little relationship he had rebuilt with them, or if I simply said what should have been said years ago. Not the jerk. Your mother-in-law said your husband ruined his life like he isn't sitting there with a degree, a successful career in business, a wife who clearly loves him, and children who adore him. Most people would be proud to call that a successful life. What she's grieving isn't his future. She's grieving the version of it she imagined for herself and never let go of. What stands out most here is that your husband didn't fail. He chose. That's the piece they can't accept. He wasn't pushed out. He wasn't forced to quit. He was talented enough to keep going, and he still decided it wasn't the life he wanted. For people who tied their dreams to his talent, that probably felt personal. That doesn't excuse any of this. It just explains why they're still stuck there while he moved on years ago. You didn't destroy the relationship. You just exposed what was already there. If all you had to do was ask how exactly did he ruin his life and the whole room went silent, then everyone already knew there was no real answer. Your husband walked away from a future they picked for him and built one that he actually wanted. That clearly still bothers them. Update 3 days later. I never expected this much attention on my post, so thanks. I'm sorry I haven't been able to reply to everyone. I wanted to come back, clear up a few things, and give a small update. First, thanks for all the kind words. I really appreciate them. I reacted on instinct that day, and afterward, I did wonder if I'd gone too far. My husband reassured me almost immediately that I hadn't. He told me he would have done the same thing for me without hesitation, which I already knew, but it still meant a lot to hear. He's been all smiles every time we talk about it, which I'll admit has made me feel much better. I also want to say I'm sorry to everyone who shared stories about going through something similar. Reading some of those comments was heartbreaking. I'm glad so many of you got out of those situations and found your own path. Sincerely, good for you. I should clarify one thing that came up a lot in the comments. My mother-in-law doesn't think my husband ruined his life because he became a husband, father, or a businessman. She thinks he ruined his life because he walked away from his chance to be recognized and famous. That was always the dream in their family. Not money, since they've always been financially comfortable, but recognition, talent being seen and being known for it. None of them reached that level themselves, and my husband was the only one with the kind of talent that truly could have. They put all of that on him. Every hope they had, every dream they didn't achieve themselves, went onto his shoulders. When he walked away, they saw it as him throwing all of that away. Another thing I should have explained better, though I did mention it, my husband didn't stop competing after high school. He continued through university to maintain his scholarships. Once he graduated, then he stepped away from boxing for good. He used the sport to build the future he wanted for himself, especially his education, even if he never wanted boxing to be his career. A lot of people were also worried about our children hearing what happened, but they didn't. They were outside playing the whole time when I snapped. They didn't hear any of it. A few people also mentioned the long-term physical and emotional impact of boxing. Someone linked a story about a couple dealing with the aftermath of it, and it was heartbreaking to read. Injuries and trauma were a huge part of why my husband never wanted to make boxing his profession. Fortunately, he came away with very minimal damage physically and still sees a specialist once a year just to make sure everything's okay. He's doing well. That's always been one of my biggest reasons for being grateful he chose the life that he did. My husband told me something recently that really stayed with me. He said that over the years, he always felt like something was a little off with his family after they reconnected. Like they were being polite, but something underneath never really changed. So while he was hurt hearing what his mother said, he wasn't entirely surprised either. In his words, he thinks they may have been pretending to move on while still holding on to the same beliefs and possibly doing it just to stay close enough to have access to our kids. That was difficult to hear. Small update from today. This morning, while dropping the kids off at school, his sister's husbands were there and asked if they could talk to my husband privately and hear his version of everything. So we all went to have breakfast together, and my husband told them the full story. From their reaction, it became very clear they hadn't been told the truth. They seemed genuinely shocked by parts of it, and it also became obvious that their wives had continued downplaying everything even recently. One of them even admitted he's starting to notice his wife showing some of the same behaviors as my mother-in-law, which says a lot. By the end of breakfast, we all agreed to sit down this Saturday and figure out how to move forward, especially regarding the kids. All of the cousins go to the same school and are very close. None of us want to damage those relationships or make the kids carry the weight of the adults' problems. As for my husband's parents, we're also meeting with them on Saturday. That conversation will be about what their relationship with us and with our kids is going to look like moving forward. So that's where things stand for now. Thank you again to everyone who took the time to read, comment, and share advice. It helped more than I expected. Update 1 week later. Over the week, my husband and I spent a lot of time talking privately about what happened and what we wanted to do next. Before speaking with anyone else, we talked to our kids first. We kept it casual and didn't make it obvious. We asked how things had been going with their grandparents, how visits felt, and whether anything had ever made them uncomfortable. Thankfully, we got positive responses all around. They've always been treated well, which was important for us to hear clearly before moving forward. Once we felt settled on that, we spoke to everyone on Sunday without the kids present. My husband handled most of the talking. First, we met with his parents. They started trying to apologize almost immediately, though we cut that short. He told them we weren't there for apologies or explanations. We were there to talk about what their relationship with us, and especially with our children, was going to look like from now on. He told them we would no longer be bringing the kids to their house the way we used to. Going forward, they'll have 2 visits per month, supervised by us. They'll be responsible for planning those visits and letting us know well enough in advance so we can approve them. Outside of those visits, the only other times they'll see the kids will be birthdays and holidays. He also made one thing very clear. Any comments about him or me in front of our children, even once, and that will be the last visit. No second chances. As for us personally, we'll remain civil, nothing more. They agreed. Before we left, they told us they're separating. My husband said that changes nothing. The boundaries stay the same regardless of their marital status. If they stay together, they can use the visits together. If they separate and want to split them, that's up to them. Either way, the rules remain in place. Those visits won't begin until their situation is sorted out. Later that same day, we met with his sisters and their husbands together at one house. Similar conversation through my husband gave his sisters more room to speak. They apologized and admitted they had handled things badly. They also told us they're returning to therapy. At one point, they asked my husband whether he had ever considered going with them. He said no. He told them the relationship is too damaged to truly rebuild. He doesn't wish them harm and wishes no hatred towards them, though what he can offer now is common decency and respect. Nothing deeper than that. He also told them he hopes they take therapy seriously this time, not just for themselves, but for their children and husbands who deserve better. After that, he proposed keeping things mostly the same between the cousins. Our kids can still visit their homes, and theirs can still visit ours. We don't want the kids carrying the weight of the adults' mistakes. They're close, they go to the same school, and we want to preserve that if possible. My own family also still wants to maintain the same relationship with the children. The only exception involves visits with his parents. His sisters now know the arrangement we made with them, and everyone understands the boundaries around it. He made it clear that if another comment like the one his mother made happens again, everything stops immediately. No arguments, no second warning. Everyone agreed. So for now, the goal is civility. Everyone seems committed to keeping things respectful for the kids, which feels like the best possible outcome right now. A few people mentioned how good it was that the brother-in-laws listened to my husband's side, and I should clarify that we've never had issues with them. We actually like them a lot. I have a good relationship with both of them, and my husband's is even stronger. They spend time together outside of family events, which is part of why they felt comfortable coming directly to him. We trust them, especially when it comes to keeping the cousins close while respecting the boundaries we've put in place. As for my father-in-law, things are more complicated. From what my husband learned through his sister's husbands, the separation may partly be tied to disagreements over how my husband was treated. Apparently, his father accepted years ago that he was wrong in many ways and believed his wife and daughters had also changed during the estrangement. He apologized when they reconnected. Then again, so did his mother and sisters, and we all know how that turned out. So right now, my husband and me too can't help feeling a little cynical. My husband gave them a second chance after 12 years apart. He believed that they had changed. Unfortunately, it seems some of them were just better at hiding what they still believed. Maybe the only one who truly made progress was his father. Time will tell. For now, my husband and I have drawn our lines clearly, and we'll make sure that they don't cross them. This feels like the best realistic outcome you could have hoped for. No screaming match, yet no pretending that everything is magically repaired. Just clear boundaries, direct consequences, and protecting the kids without dragging them into the issues. That's hard to pull off, and you both handled it incredibly well. Your husband comes across incredibly steady through all of this. What strikes me is how direct he was without turning cruel. He didn't get dragged into arguing old history or trying to win an emotional battle. He simply laid out what the future looks like now and let everyone decide how they're going to respond. That kind of calm usually comes from someone who's had to fight for peace for a very long time. The part that stayed with me the most is that your husband gave them another chance after 12 years apart, and they still couldn't fully let go of the version of him they wanted instead of accepting the person he became. That's painful. At the same time, he seems to have built exactly the kind of life that he wanted. Protecting that now is the most important. Imagine saying that your son ruined his life while looking at his happy marriage, successful career, thriving business, and children who adore him.
Yeah, mother-in-law looked at everything he built for himself and still went, "Yeah, but what about boxing?"
Then he hit her with the supervised visits twice a month and calendar invite.
Which is generous, frankly. I would have given her one holiday and a lot of time to reflect.
Am I the jerk for going to my boyfriend's birthday instead of staying with my sick roommate? I'm genuinely losing sleep over this, and I can't tell if I handled it terribly or if this whole situation has just gotten wildly out of hand. A few days ago, I, 21 female, went to celebrate my boyfriend's birthday. He's 19. This wasn't spontaneous. It had been planned for months, and I was actually meant to leave the day before, but stayed home one extra day after plans shifted. A few hours before I was supposed to head out, my roommate, who's 30 female, was having the worst period of her life. Context: she has endometriosis and PCOS, and sometimes it gets really bad. This time it was bad enough that she called her mom and sister to come help. Once they got there, things escalated and they ended up calling an ambulance. After her family arrived, the EMTs came and they all left for the hospital. I also left to go see my boyfriend as planned. Later that night, while I was with him, I got a text from my roommate's boyfriend. He was away for work and asked if I was home and looking after the dogs. My roommate has 5 big dogs, and her boyfriend's dog is over often enough that there are usually 6 in the house. He asked pretty casually, so I told him no, I wasn't home, but if they needed me back, I could absolutely return. I also said I assumed everything was okay since her family had been there and seemed to have things handled. I told him I hoped she was okay. He replied neutrally and said everything was fine, so I left it there. Since things had felt a little strange and her boyfriend had flown back to be with her, I decided to stay one extra day at my boyfriend's place. My thinking was that if she had just gotten back from the hospital after a major health scare, she probably wanted privacy and rest. I didn't want to be in the way. I wasn't extending the trip just to spend extra time with my boyfriend. I genuinely thought I was giving them space. I got back home late the next night, and the atmosphere felt awful immediately. Everyone was ignoring me. I figured maybe it was late and awkward, so I went straight to my room. The next morning, I ran into her boyfriend in the kitchen, and he yelled at me for around 10 straight minutes, calling me inconsiderate and selfish, and going off about how I had abandoned the house. I didn't say much. He was already angry, and I didn't want things escalating, so I just went back upstairs. Then, later that evening, my roommate texted me. It was a long message saying she was deeply hurt that I left, that it looked like I cared more about my plans than being part of the household, and that I should have stayed home to take care of the dogs so her boyfriend wouldn't have had to rush back. She also said I'm no longer allowed to have people over because she can't trust me anymore. That part especially threw me off, because I have a friend flying in soon to visit me for a week while my roommate is away at her brother's wedding. And I was also supposed to watch the dogs that week. She told me she had arranged other care for them now since she doesn't trust me. By the end of the message, it felt like she was hinting pretty strongly that I should move out. Context: I'm an exchange student from Paris studying in Dublin, and I'm already supposed to leave the country in about a month. My roommate is also technically my landlord since she sublets the room to me. The dogs were never my responsibility. That was clear from the beginning. They're hers to feed, walk, and care for. I do love those dogs a lot though. I miss my cats back home, so I've helped plenty over the year. Letting them out into the garden, sitting downstairs with them while doing homework, feeding them if she asked, and even watching them over a weekend once when I offered. Key word is offered. Whenever I helped, it was because I wanted to, not because it was expected. If she or her boyfriend had directly asked me to come back and help, I would have done so immediately. When he texted me that morning, I was basically already packing to catch the first bus if needed. I even told him I could be back within the hour. He explicitly said everything was handled. That's the part I keep replaying in my head. The whole thing has gotten so tense that I'm currently staying at my boyfriend's place. My roommate and her boyfriend are barely speaking to me unless it's to make things uncomfortable. They've been acting like I'm invisible whenever I'm there. One night, they stayed up talking loudly and blasting the TV until around 5 in the morning. I could hear it through walls, even with noise-canceling headphones on. I barely slept, and I spent the whole night looking at flights. At this point, I've called my parents, booked my ticket, and decided I'm leaving before the end of the month. I'll be going back to Paris on the 2nd. Until then, I'm staying with my boyfriend's family, who kindly offered me a place for as long as I need. My mom told me to message my roommate with my move-out date, ask for my deposit back anyway, and take photos of everything before I leave, so I have proof of the condition of the room. I feel terrible that she was so unwell. I also feel completely blindsided by how all of this somehow became my fault. Not the jerk. You're a tenant, not her partner or emergency contact or dog sitter on standby. You stayed until her family arrived, and once they took over, you left for plans that had already been made. Then her boyfriend texted you, you offered to come back, and he told you not to. That should have been the end of it. You offered to return immediately. You didn't ignore the message. Not like you refused to help. You didn't say, "Not my problem." You literally said you could be back within the hour, then he told you everything was handled. You can't tell someone they're not needed and then get angry that they believed you. What makes this especially uncomfortable is the power dynamic. She's not just your roommate, but your landlord as well. Then, right after this disagreement, she tells you that you can't have guests over anymore and then hints that you should leave? Plus her boyfriend yelling at you in the kitchen? That goes way beyond normal roommate conflict. You were doing kind things for the dogs because you cared. Somewhere along the way, they started treating your kindness like an obligation. Update 3 days later. Quick update since things escalated really fast. Like everyone told me to, I finally moved out all of my things. Got home about 10 minutes ago. After everything that happened with my roommate/landlord, I made the decision to move out of the room I'm renting before the end of the month. Originally, my plan was simply to wait until Sunday when she'd be gone for a week for her brother's wedding, go back to the house while it was empty, move all of my things out, leave the keys behind and be done with it. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I just genuinely didn't feel comfortable being around her after everything that happened and wanted to avoid another confrontation. Then she texted me and changed the plan entirely. She told me I needed to move my things out either immediately while she was still present in the house or wait until the following week when she got back so she could personally inspect the room herself. That stressed me out immediately. I was already staying at my boyfriend's place by then and trying to keep my distance, and the idea of going back into that house while things were still tense felt awful. I asked around to figure out whether I actually needed to be there for an inspection or if I could simply move my things out, document everything, and let her inspect the room afterward. But then it got worse. While I was trying to figure out what to do, she told me that if I didn't collect my belongings before she left, I could end up locked out. Apparently, there were extra locks or security locks on the house I didn't even know existed and didn't have keys for. I had the key to my bedroom and the key to the front door. That's it. Suddenly, I was being told I might not be able to get back in. That completely changed things. The biggest issue was my passport. I had left it in my room with my other important documents and personal things, assuming I'd be back shortly anyway. Once I realized there was even a chance I could be locked out while all of that was still inside, I stopped trying to negotiate and just focused on getting everything out as quickly as possible. So I went back and moved everything that day. I packed up an entire year of my life in one go. I cleaned the room out completely, took photos and videos of everything before leaving, documented the condition of the room, made sure nothing was left behind, and handed the keys back. At that point, I was pretty convinced she'll probably find some excuse to keep my deposit, so I didn't see much point dragging the situation out longer than necessary. I just wanted out. There wasn't some huge dramatic confrontation, no screaming or any final argument. We barely spoke at all. I did call the police beforehand to ask what my options were in case I was locked out while my passport was still inside. From what they told me, I'd have been within my rights to call if that happened since I live there and pay rent, and they likely could have helped me access the property. It also would have been a long, stressful mess, and I really didn't want it to get to that point unless absolutely necessary. If it had just been clothes or random belongings, maybe I would have risked waiting. Not with my passport, and especially not this close to flying home. Worth mentioning too is I never signed a formal contract when I moved in, which made the whole thing feel even shakier. That added another layer of stress since I didn't feel like I had much to stand on if things got uglier. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. Everything's out now. I'm back staying with my boyfriend and his family for the time being, and while I cried a lot during the whole moving process, I feel unbelievably relieved now that it's done. I still don't know what will happen with a deposit. I'm not expecting much there. At this point, I'm just glad my belongings are out, my documents are with me, and I don't have to sleep in that house anymore. Also, in a very unexpected twist, instead of flying straight back home right away, my boyfriend's dad has gifted me a trip to Hungary and Austria so I can meet my boyfriend's mom before I head back to Paris, which feels surreal after the week that I've had. So somehow, this whole disaster ended with me moving out safely, getting my things back, and leaving for a road trip across Europe. Could have ended much worse. Very happy it all ended well. Packing up a whole year of your life in one day while trying not to cry is exhausting on every level. Still, getting your belongings, your documents, and your passport out safely matters way more than that deposit. Money can be replaced. Replacing your passport while dealing with international travel would have been a nightmare. Leaving quickly was absolutely the smartest move. My favorite part was her offering to come back immediately and them acting offended that she believed their answer. Nothing says mixed signals quite like, "Don't come back," followed by, "Why weren't you here?"
Right. Asked if she could come back, got told no, then somehow still failed the assignment.
Then suddenly there were mystery locks that nobody mentioned before, while her passport's still inside?
That's when you stop unpacking your feelings and start packing your bags. My ex-girlfriend tried to make me get a tattoo of her name. We dated for 2 years. She loved tattoos and maybe had 6 tattoos when we were dating. To be honest, I never liked tattoos, but I don't judge people for having them. Once we had an argument after she got a tattoo that said, "James Property." James is my name. She said she had done this for me. I appreciated her, but also I told her it wasn't necessary. I told her that she doesn't need to show her love by marking her body, and I love her for being herself. She took it offensively and started to argue with me, saying that I don't love her and I don't appreciate her efforts for our relationship.
We had an argument, but we were able to solve it and pass through it. Then she asked me to get a tattoo of her name on my neck as a birthday present. She knew that I absolutely hated tattoos, and I do participate in blood donation events, so it's a big no for me. I told her that she can ask anything, but I won't get any tattoos. She again started to argue with me, but I was firm with my decision. Then she lost it, called me names, shouted at me, and accused me of using her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from her at that moment. I realized our relationship was getting very toxic. I wanted to end it, but wanted to give it another go because I loved her. To my surprise, she broke up with me, saying she can't be with someone who doesn't love her. Before I could say anything, I found myself blocked on every social media she had. 2 years have passed since then, and I'm in a much better place now. I'm doing very well. I'm earning a fair income too. I've gained new hobbies, I've met new people and made new friends. But last night, I got plenty of messages from my ex asking how I was. I wasn't expecting this because I almost forgot that she existed, but I didn't reply to any of them. At midnight, I got a bunch of calls from her, but I didn't pick up any of them. In the early morning, she called again, and she was sending me messages continuously. Finally, I answered her call, and she said that we need to talk. She immediately said she made a huge mistake by breaking up with me, that she misses me and she wants me back. She also said she won't try to make me do anything again and will try to remove those tattoos if I want. I was listening to her, but for some reason, I just didn't feel anything. Maybe because my life became so much better without her over the past 2 years. I just said, buzz off and never contact me again. Then I blocked her. I don't know if what I did was right or wrong, but I shared it with some of my friends today. Some of them said that I did the right thing. Some of them said I was being cruel to her because she was just trying to fix our broken relationship. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Sounds like she just threw out a bunch of how much she missed you and won't make you do this or that, but never truly apologized for her emotional immaturity. You've already created a new chapter in your life. Just keep moving forward. You would never be wrong for standing your ground and prioritizing your own happiness and values. If you feel that reconciling with her could potentially bring back toxicity into your life, then it might not be the right move. Your life is better without her. Why risk it all? You just did what you thought was best for you. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that his daughter is not allowed in my apartment because she won't stop smuggling peanuts in? I can't have any contact with peanuts, and I'm terrified of them due to some bad experiences that ended with me in the hospital. I always carry my shots with me now. While it's not exactly airborne, I could experience irritation if I, for example, touched something that had been in contact with peanuts. This could lead to swollen eyes, an itchy nose, and a sore throat. Ingesting peanuts is fatal for me. His daughter is 14, and she has no respect whatsoever for my anxiety. My boyfriend and I moved in together, and she lives with us every other week. I told my boyfriend that I don't want her here because she's not respecting my boundaries. However, I understand that he might not want to live with me under these conditions, so we could revert to him being with me when he doesn't have his daughter. He got very upset because he said he loved me and wanted a real relationship, living in one home. So I told him that maybe he should be with someone who isn't allergic then. He thinks I'm being very unfair. He said his daughter will probably hate the next girlfriend and the next because she wants her mom and him to be together again. So it's not me specifically that she dislikes. I suggested he might need to take a break from dating until she is on board, but he said he couldn't be single just because his daughter wants him to. Before me, he was single for 6 years, and that wasn't good enough. Before we decided to move in together, we did some trial living arrangements, and never once did his daughter do anything concerning nuts. But now, for 4 months, she has always had peanuts with her. I don't know why she's doing this. I thought we were okay. She just smirks and says, "Maybe if you're so allergic, you're not meant to survive," referencing a stand-up comedy bit from Louis C.K. Don't let your boyfriend make you think that your request is unreasonable. You're definitely not the jerk here. You set a very clear boundary because of very valid health reasons, and he and his daughter are the ones refusing to respect it. Honestly, the way he presented his argument during your discussion with him is giving me the icks. OP. No, I don't think my request is unreasonable. I think it's time to set him free if he doesn't want to go back to our old arrangement, and I understand that he wants someone more permanent. Tell his terrible daughter to her face that she's the only reason why you broke up with her dad, and ask her if it makes her happy that he's sad. Then block them both. They don't deserve you. OP. She would probably be very happy to hear that. Update. I told my boyfriend that I wanted to break up. He was very sad and tried to reason with me. He suggested that we could live separately since his daughter will soon be an adult. I told him that being 18 doesn't guarantee she will leave the nest, nor that he will stop being a father. Anytime she could face hardships and want to move home, and she needs to find that home. She couldn't have it with me. Regarding living separately, while it's fine now and for the next few years, what about the future? He was silent and listened to me. I felt overwhelmed because I do love him. He said the only way his daughter will be happy is when he's alone. She's in therapy but has shown no regard for her father or his life. She seems to not see him as an individual with feelings. He's just a father. I don't know what to tell him and just said that she probably needed time to grow up. Until he moves out, his daughter is not allowed in my apartment. She called and threw a tantrum about her father choosing me instead. She said that she has the right to live with her father every other week and this shouldn't change. I didn't say anything. They need to fix this as a family. I'm not a part of their family anymore. He rented his apartment with a 1-year contract, so I don't know how he will manage to find a new place or terminate the lease so he can move back to his old apartment. Anyway, he's staying here for a couple of months. I'm very sad that this beautiful relationship came to an end, but I need to think about myself now. You're doing the right thing, but he needs to move out a lot faster. Letting him stick around for months won't work. The girl will find a way in, and he will try to make life difficult and get the relationship back on track by guilt-tripping you the entire time. It's not worth the hassle. He needs to be out by the end of the month. I, 21 female, am thinking of breaking up with my boyfriend who's 22 after meeting his family. I can't tell if I'm being overdramatic. I've been with my boyfriend, let's call him Andy, for just over a year. Although I have been on lots of dates before him, he's my first ever proper relationship. 3 days ago, he took me to his family's house for his dad's birthday family dinner. I was under the assumption that the only people that would be there would be Andy's siblings and parents. I was wrong. His whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, lots of relatives he hadn't even seen in years. His family is very rich and they have a huge house that was able to accommodate everyone. I get very anxious around large groups of people, especially when I'm not expecting it and I don't know anyone, so I was sticking by Andy's side the whole night, engaging in polite conversation with everyone. When everyone was seated for dinner, Andy's mom spoke up and asked me if Andy was my first boyfriend. I confirmed, and she said, "I guess I can excuse it then." When I asked her about it, she just said I was being so clingy to Andy the whole night and not letting him see his family. I explained my situation about my anxiety to her, and all she said was, "He's a man. He needs his freedom. He doesn't need you stuck at his side." I've always been taught to defend myself, so I started to say how I was sure Andy didn't mind and asked her to not bring this up around 30 people, but Andy interrupted me and told me not to disrespect his mother like that. I asked him how it was okay for his mother to call me clingy, but not okay for me to defend myself, and he just told me to be quiet and let his dad enjoy his birthday. I didn't want to create more of a scene, so I did that. The only thing that made me feel better was when his older sister said, "It's okay, I feel that way sometimes as well." But still, I kept getting dirty looks from everyone around the table. I was close to tears, so before dessert came out, I told Andy that I didn't feel comfortable or welcome here, so I was going to go home. I stood up, claimed to be feeling sick, and that I was going to go home. No one stopped me, but Andy got up and followed me out and asked me to stay. At this point, I started crying, and I told him I felt so attacked in that room, and I was really upset that he didn't stand up for me or even mention that he initiated some of the hand-holding and sticking together throughout the night. He apologized, but I told him I didn't know if I could be with someone like that. That made him start crying, asking me not to leave him and that he loved me. I just told him I needed to think about it, got in my car and drove home. It's been 3 days and he sent me a few messages before saying he'd leave me alone. I really like him, but I don't know if I can trust him to stand up for me around his family or even others. I also can't help but feel I'm blowing this way out of proportion, which is making me feel worse. I really love Andy and I don't want to lose him. Can someone please give me some advice on what I should do? Edit. I just want to make this clear to everyone that 1, I'm not usually this bad in social settings. I just wasn't expecting the 30 to 40 people that were there, and my anxiety can get the better of me. 2, I'm not that upset about his mom calling me clingy. I'm upset that Andy didn't say anything and allowed me to feel humiliated in front of everyone. It was a truly isolated feeling. 3, I didn't mention this earlier because I didn't think it was relevant,
But Andy's sister, who's 25, reached out to me and apologized on behalf of the family, saying she regrets not saying more. I'm planning on talking to him soon and will leave an update later. Update. I listened to some of the advice you guys gave me, and I messaged Andy last night and we met up this morning at a park near my house. I asked him to let me say my piece, and then he can come in and say what he wants to say. I told him how the whole situation made me feel, and how I felt disrespected by him, and that I don't really care about his excuses as to why he did what he did. I also asked him to give his dad an apology for my behavior and for causing a scene at his birthday, as some of the comments made me realize that I maybe didn't handle the situation in the best way possible. Once I was done, Andy then told me I had nothing to apologize for, and that it was not only his mom that was out of order, but him. He told me after all the guests had left, his sister gave him and his mom an earful about their behavior, and that he was truly sorry about how he had treated me. Apparently, his mom just meant to make me uncomfortable and not break us up, but I'm not so sure I believe that. I made the decision to show Andy this post that I made. When he saw it, it really did make him think and agree. He told me he knows I don't care about this, but he said as the youngest of his family, his brother and cousins used to bully him relentlessly, doing stuff that I won't repeat, and the only person who stood up for him was his mother. So he has quite a close relationship with her, and when the whole situation at dinner went down, he freaked out and took his mother's side. He asked for another chance to prove himself to me because he really did love me and he didn't want to lose me. I love Andy, and I didn't want this to completely ruin our relationship when this was really the first major thing to happen, so I agreed to give him another chance, only if he proved to me that he was willing to stand up for me against his family, and that if anything like this happens again, I'm gone. Right now, me and Andy are friendly, but we are not jumping straight back into our relationship just for the time being. I'm not asking him to choose between me or his family. I'm not that kind of person, but I did ask to meet his family again, maybe in a quieter setting, and try to start over. If his mom is still cold with me and making me upset, then I'll figure out what to do next from there. Fortunately, me and Andy's sister have been messaging a lot, so I know that she is in my corner. As for people talking about managing my anxiety, I already see someone for that. Thanks for suggesting that, though. You don't want to be a part of that family. Trust me. If this is how they're going to treat you the first time you meet, it's only going to get worse. You're young. Find someone else who respects you and with a family who are not jerks. The first thing my future mother-in-law said to me was, "Oh, you're nervous? Don't be nervous. I love everyone, except X. But you're not like X, are you?" X was her only daughter-in-law at the time. I excused the comment, thinking she was just nervous meeting me too, and just put her foot in her mouth. Then I found out how X was treated by her and the rest of the family. Then I was treated the same way. If my fiance did not have my back against all that, we would not be getting married. If my kid told me this story, I would tell them to get out of that unnecessary drama and never look back. It isn't worth it. If this is her polite way of addressing you in front of a group of people during an event that isn't even hers, I can assure you the way she will treat you in private will be beyond the pale. If your boyfriend can't stand up for you when his family member has a minor issue with you, he will never have your back in any real dispute. And believe me, there will be many disputes. You've just been told in front of that whole family that you aren't good enough, and you will never be good enough, even if you spend years trying to be perfect. Would I be the jerk for telling my little sister she can't remove me from my wedding photo and Photoshop herself into my place? My little sister, who's 28, is recently engaged. I, 30, female, got married about 6 years ago. I've since divorced and am engaged again. Our mom passed 5 years ago, shortly after my wedding. At my wedding 6 years ago, the photographer took a photo of my mom fastening a necklace around my neck. My little sister had told multiple people that when she gets married, she plans to hire someone with graphic design skills to remove me from that photo and Photoshop herself in my place. So far, I've said nothing, but I've always felt hurt by that idea, and now that she's actually planning a wedding, I'm wondering if I should put my foot down. At the same time, I don't want to add to her pain either. Background on prioritizing her feelings and wants leading up to this point. Very shortly after our mom passed, all my sisters, including my older married sisters, expressed that they wanted our mom's engagement ring. As my little sister didn't get to have our mom at her wedding, and the rest of us did get that experience, I urged my dad to hang on to our mom's engagement ring for our little sister for when she eventually gets engaged. Ultimately, I was successful in advocating for her to inherit our mom's ring. Once engaged, she decided to reset the ring, so the only part of it that remains is the central diamond. It's a completely different design now and is unrecognizable. We're all a bit upset by that, but what's done is done. Next, we both wanted to use our mom's wedding dress in our upcoming weddings, but she plans to alter it beyond recognition as if it were a long-sleeve A-line dress, and she wants a strapless mermaid-style dress. I proposed that we each wear it, but not make significant alterations, but she brought up that I'm the only one who didn't get to have mom at her wedding, and I do feel for her, so I dropped my bid to wear the dress. But at this point, I feel inclined to draw the line at removing me from my own photo with my mom. Yes, I did get to have my mom at my first wedding. I won't have her at my wedding to the person I'll be spending the rest of my life with, so I'm feeling some sadness there too. If someone is going to be photoshopping someone out of that picture, I feel it should be me photoshopping my 24-year-old self out for my 31-year-old self. She also has tons of photos with our mom she could use for this purpose instead, as well as photos of our mom solo that no one would need to be removed from. Obviously, I can't force her to not do as she pleases with the photo, but would I be the jerk if I tell her I'm not okay with that and that she doesn't have my permission or blessing to remove me from my wedding photo with my mom? ETA. Many people suggesting lawsuits, so I want to clarify that no, I would not sue over this. I love my sister and don't want to add to her grief. I'm only grappling with whether or not it's worth it to ask her not to use my photo in this way. Hard to give judgment, but I guess I'm confused at the priorities here. She photoshops a photo. You still have the real photo. She changes the dress. That dress is gone. You already gave her the ring. I'd be fighting more about the dress. I don't think you're a jerk, and I do feel like your sister kind of is, but I guess I just can't relate to why the photo is the bigger issue here. I'm a portrait artist who has done artwork of grandparents and grandbabies that never got to meet, wedding shots that never happened, and so on. Encourage your sister to seek out an artist to create something special for her, rather than editing your wedding photo. You, or possibly the original photographer, own the copyright for that original photo. You absolutely can stop her from illegally violating copyright. If she's planning to ask a professional to do the edit, they should either say no or make her prove she has permission to do it. Am I the jerk for reporting my coworker friend to HR after she told me she's not interested in me? I, 27 male, reported my colleague Alana, mid-30s female, to HR, which led to her getting kicked off a project. Many of my other coworkers think my move was crappy, but I was just trying to protect myself. I wanted to get an opinion on what I did if it was correct, or am I acting like a jerk and should I take my complaint back? Alana and I have been working together for 4 years. We were in consulting, which means we have to travel across the country for 3 to 4 days a week. Since Alana and I have similar expertise, we generally get put on the same projects and travel together to our client's office. We get along really well and we make a great team. We generally coordinated our flights, booked cars together, and always had our lunch and dinner together when we visit our clients. We were just really good friends at that point, and I would always be excited when I was put on a project with her. People around the office have called us work spouses in the past, and we quickly shut that down, so as to keep our relationship professional. We also texted each other outside work, but it was mostly about coordinating our travel, etc. Alana got married 2 years ago, and I attended the wedding. Alana had mentioned in the past how her husband jokingly mentioned that he is a bit jealous of her spending more time with me than him. She always says he checks her work phone in our messages, and I've never ever sent anything unprofessional to her anyways. 2 months ago, when Alana and I were traveling, she told me during dinner that she wants to keep our relationship strictly professional and she wants to be a loyal wife. It was weird, since I never once insinuated that I was into her. She told me she developed a stupid crush on me, but would never act on it. She also told her husband about it, and he wanted her to communicate with me directly that nothing will ever happen between us. I told her she has nothing to worry about, and I also just view her as a great coworker. She asked me if we could avoid getting drinks after work or going to dinners regularly, as it makes her husband insecure. I said okay, but I was kind of annoyed about it. I stopped inviting her for dinner every night and generally went out alone. I also informed my manager about the conversation as I did not want anyone to think I was being inappropriate. Things cooled down for the last 2 months, and I would just talk to Alana during office hours. 2 weeks ago, Alana messaged me out of the blue one night if I wanted to meet for dinner. I said okay, and we met. A few drinks in, Alana got a bit emotional and told me how she misses hanging out with me, and it's all her husband's fault as he's very controlling and jealous. She told me that she wants our old friendship back and she doesn't care about what he thinks anymore. I told her as much as I like to hang out with her, I'm really just here to do my job, and I do not want to be an issue in whatever is going on between her husband and her. I told her to just continue the way we are right now and only interact during office hours. She got really angry at me and called me names for not supporting her when she was sharing her problems with me. I was a bit worried about our interactions, and after consulting my girlfriend, I informed HR about our conversation. I told them that Alana did not do anything unprofessional, but I really do not want to be involved in her personal life and issues and want to make a record with HR about the same. HR was very cooperative, and in the next week, they replaced Alana with someone else on that project. Alana was beyond upset that I told HR about our personal conversation and is bad-mouthing me around the company and my colleagues. Everyone thinks that I'm not a team player, and it was a low blow to talk to HR and get her kicked off the project for such a trivial reason. I wanted to ask if I'm being unfair in this scenario. I consider Alana as a friend, but I really don't want to be involved in the drama between her husband and her. If he's uncomfortable with me, I would rather take myself out of the equation than be a part of the problem. I complied with her request to maintain my distance, and now I feel uncomfortable to go back to hanging out with her on our business trips. I also wanted to ask what you guys think Alana's endgame is here. She first shoved me off and practically told me to get away from her, like I was a creep, and now wants to hang out again even though her husband hates it. It's deeply confusing to me what she even intends to achieve. Not wrong. It sounds like you have mature and appropriate boundaries concerning your job. She sounds like she's destabilizing your work environment with her complicated home life and feelings for you. It's not at all trivial to talk to HR to avoid being dragged into this couple's fight, risking your job and your own relationship. Nobody's got time for that. I hope the situation eases up soon for you and everyone involved. Yeah, there was literally no reason for this to ever become an issue at all. She developed a crush on OP. She could have said absolutely nothing and nobody would have cared, no problem. Yet for some reason, she told her husband, whom she knows is the controlling and jealous type, and then started a whole chain of drama for no reason at all. It sounds to me like she told her husband so that she'd have an excuse, or maybe she wants out of the marriage and is using OP as the excuse. The reason she told OP about her crush on him is that she was hoping he felt the same way. He shut her down and wanted out of the drama. Now she wants to hang out with OP, knowing it will cause friction in her relationship. She's still looking for an out. I think she realized she doesn't want to be married to her current husband and is just looking for a way out. Am I the jerk for going out to eat without my husband and kids because they didn't wash the dishes? Both my husband and I work full-time. I work real estate and he works at a shipyard. We both collectively work around 50 to 60-hour weeks. We have 4 kids, 13-year-old twins, a 12-year-old, and an 8-month-old. My husband has every weekend off, I do not. I implicated a chore system from the time my kids were little. But ever since I had the baby and since the kids are all older, all of them have slacked off tremendously, including my husband. I pick our baby up from daycare around 5 p.m., and when I get home, I usually find my husband on the couch on his phone and the kids in their rooms playing video games or watching makeup tutorials. The house is generally a mess, and honestly, the only issue I have is the dishes. I usually don't worry about anything else because the rest of the house is generally not dirty, it's just cluttered. But I have expressed several times that I'm tired of having to wash all the dishes in order to cook, and I've lashed out in some not so nice ways, shutting off the internet entirely and took the cord with me to work so no one could use the Wi-Fi or watch TV, canceled family trips, groundation, got into big arguments with my husband. Things will change for a week to a month and then switch right back to them refusing to help. I'm honestly so tired of it that I don't even have the energy to speak up anymore. As I said, my husband has weekends off, so he and the kids were home yesterday while I worked. Before I took off for the day, I told them, "You guys' chores had better be completed by the time I get home." They said, "Yes, ma'am," and I leave. I text my husband around 4:30 p.m. asking what they all wanted for dinner because I had to stop at the grocery store. I pick up what he said they all wanted and walk into my home to find that not a single dish had been washed and there was at least 10 more dishes in the sink from when I left that morning. I also noted that only a load of laundry had been washed and was still sitting in the washer and was never switched to the dryer. Husband was on the couch watching YouTube, kids off playing video games, baby in her walker. So I put the groceries on the table, packed a bag for the baby, and told my husband, "Have at it, I'm going to Applebee's." Then I left. Maybe 20 minutes later he calls and says, I washed the dishes. Sorry, I was super tired today. I told him that's zero excuse at all. There's 3 older kids who have chores, and he couldn't even step up and tell his kids to complete anything either. It's pure laziness at this point. He said, I know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on it. Can you just come home? I don't know how to make this dish. It's a pretty difficult dish, but he could have just Googled it. I told him no, I'm sitting at Applebee's and will be enjoying my steak and shrimp with the baby in peace, and that him and the older kids can fend for themselves, because apology or not, I'm not letting him off the hook here. He had me on speakerphone, so him and all the kids laid right into me, asking me to please grab them something from Applebee's. It's our favorite restaurant. I said absolutely not and hung up the phone. When I returned home, the groceries had been put away, and apparently they had grilled cheese and cereal for dinner. My husband and kids are all upset with me. I told them this is how it will be every single time they don't do chores from now on. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He's an adult, and the older kids are old enough to make a sandwich. I did the dishes almost every night growing up. It was my contribution to the house. What are they going to do when they grow up and move out? This is how you enforce a boundary in a healthy way to make sure you don't get trampled on. Not the jerk, and good for you. Not the jerk. In fact, bravo. Your husband is the jerk here. He's the parent, and for him to sit down and wait for you to do everything is BS. Stand your ground. If they're supposed to do laundry and they don't, then take your clothes and the baby's to a laundromat and let them figure out how to clean their own clothes. Great post, by the way. Honestly, you sound like the jerk. Regardless of your frustration level, you don't talk to your husband that way. He's your partner, not your subordinate. Imagine if your husband demanded you do something by the time he got home. You'd be furious. Also, there's a huge difference in being a realtor and working at a shipyard. Your 50 hours is not the same as his 50 hours. I'm always in and out of shipyards. Those guys look like death warmed over them by the end of the day. You need to get family therapy, set healthy ways to talk to each other, and how to better communicate your frustrations on them not doing their fair share of the chores. Going to get steak and shrimp without them is 100% petty, and you know it. You're the jerk. They are kids. Of course they're going to forget. How dare your husband unwind with YouTube on the couch after working in a shipyard? Not the jerk. It's about time you stop allowing him to weaponize his incompetence. Plus, the kids are old enough where they should be able to make themselves a meal if they need to. Between all 4 of them, they couldn't manage to make a decent hot meal with the groceries you just bought? That's terrible. My wife expects me to raise her best friend's kid, and I'm sick of it. I, 31 male, am married to my wife Amber, who's 30. We have a daughter together, Emma, who's 7. The problem is my wife's best friend, Jennifer. She has a daughter as well, named Harper, who's 7. Well, Harper's dad is a lazy jerk, and he refuses to do anything with his daughter. He's the type of guy that brags about how he never had to change a diaper. Jennifer and Harper are usually at Amber and my house on the weekends because Harper's dad is drinking and watching sports all weekend. On Saturday, I normally spend all day with my daughter because I don't see her as much as I would like to during the week. However, with Harper being there every Saturday, anything I do with Emma, I have to take Harper with us. Take Emma to the zoo? It's Emma, Harper, and I. Taught them both how to ride bikes. Take them both to dance class. Take them both to the kids' salon, and so on. Mother's Day was the last straw. I took them both to dance class Saturday morning. Amber and I also pay for both dance classes because deadbeat dad won't. On the way home, Emma asked if we could stop to get something for Mom for Mother's Day. I said sure, but then I ended up having to buy something for Harper for her mom as well. On the way home, I just kept thinking, why am I buying someone else's wife a Mother's Day gift? That's his job. A few days later, because I didn't want to ruin Mother's Day, I told my wife that I'm sick of raising Harper. Her real father needs to step up. I'm tired of it taking away time that I get to spend with Emma. She said that Jennifer is her best friend and we need to be there for Harper. Now she's not speaking to me and is sleeping in the guest room. So, am I the jerk? Just wanted to add some updates to questions that I see. Emma and Harper are best friends. It was my idea to spend Saturday with Emma. I work more during the week, so I wanted to spend Saturday with Emma and to give my wife a bit of a break. We pay for things that Jennifer's husband thinks are a waste of money, like dance class, and Jennifer can't afford to pay for these things herself. Jennifer and Harper do things with Amber and Emma 1 or 2 times a week together during the weeknights. Not the jerk. If your wife wants to step up for Harper, then she needs to do that, not put it on you. She should be taking her places and doing things with her. Not the jerk. Stop taking Harper. It's that simple. You're having dad-daughter bonding time and don't want to tag along. If Harper wants to come along on these things, then make her mother come with you, but not your wife. Not the jerk. Just make plans to do something with your daughter and tell the friend that you will not be taking her daughter ahead of time. Not the jerk. Personally, I'd never be able to not take in a kid who needed it. A lot of kids with bad parents have their mental health saved by the kindness of friends' parents who step up. That being said, it's not something you're required to do. I do feel bad for the kid though, but none of this is her fault. Am I the jerk for not buying my wife a horse? I work in an intense, unfulfilling job 6 days a week. My wife hasn't had a paying job since we got engaged 16 years ago. 7 years ago, I quit my change the world job, which paid me a little, but really made me feel like what I was doing was right. So now I have an awful job that I hate, which pays me 10 times as much. My wife enthusiastically supported me. She urged me to change my job to the higher paying one. For a while, I felt it all in, but over time, particularly recently, I've told her that clearly this job is leading me to an early grave. It's awful, the people and crap that I deal with every day. It's immensely stressful and not rewarding in the least. But of course, as the pay started rolling in, our standard of living increased, and the amount we spend each month is eye-watering. Last night, at a cocktail party with my friends, my wife got drunk and on the way home tearfully told me that I just don't understand her and that what she truly needs to feel fulfilled is a horse. We know many people with horses. After a few questions where she kept replying that this horse or that horse wasn't good enough for her, our discussion devolved into shouting. I view this as a pretty simple thing. I want to go back to a job I like someday. I'd like to reduce our spending so I don't need to work until I'm 80 years old. My son wants to visit Madagascar. My point is that people's wants, whether they're practical or impractical, are often placed aside. Also, I don't have any hobbies, so it's not like I'm spending money on cars or something and then telling her that she can't. I should add that we live in the suburbs of a big city. We do not have a backyard where a horse can graze. We would need to first buy a special breed of horse that she demands for tens of thousands of dollars, pay for feed, veterinary, stable, insurance, etc. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another stone in my back, basically guaranteeing that I will never be able to do anything else. I view this as her saying, in so many terms,
Well, I want to be fulfilled, but I don't give a hoot about your stress or fulfillment.
am I the jerk for not rushing to buy her a horse? Lifelong horse girl here. Your wife is correct. You don't understand. People fortunate enough to be born without a horse obsession will never understand. The joy of just watching them hang out in the pasture is inexplicable to anyone not afflicted. My whole life I loved horses and had the privilege of owning several. It broke my heart when they passed, but I'll never stop wanting horses in my life. It's a sickness. That said, you should not buy your wife a horse. You don't say anything about her current involvement with horses. Is this just a whim? Has she ever been on a horse? Taken lessons? Had a horse growing up? Owning a horse is a huge commitment. They can live to be 30 plus years old, requiring more care as they get older, to the point that they can't be ridden, but they're still expensive to keep. Will that provide the fulfillment that she needs? She needs to get a job so she can pay for lessons, then lease a suitable horse. Along the way, she should work at a barn, shovel manure, carry water, sit with them while waiting for the vet, cold hose their aching legs, carry hay bales, search for lost shoes in the pasture, learn how to bandage cuts, all the no-riding things that take up 90% of horse time. If she still loves it, then she can buy a horse, and you can decide at that time if you want to contribute. Not the jerk. OP. She did work at a barn in high school, but that was decades ago. And this precise plan is what I've been suggesting for years. I fully support her getting out in nature, being around horses, etc. I suggested taking care of someone's horse, giving pony lessons somewhere, answering the phone at a barn. There are so many unloved horses in barns that need an extra hand. Our discussion last night was about how she couldn't do this and how we had to buy a special expensive horse or nothing. It's a horse girl thing is complete, total, absolute BS. So what if she does the bare minimum of paying for a horse or lessons herself? That does nothing to alleviate the stress that OP is currently under. This whole dynamic in your marriage is totally messed up and unsustainable for you. I feel like this is just glossing over the fact that your wife is trying to push you into an even more unsustainable lifestyle than you're currently in. It doesn't matter if it's a horse or a country club membership or a Lamborghini. No more rocks in your backpack. In fact, it's time to start taking some out. You need a better life. You deserve a better life. You're setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. And what is she giving in return? Just more pressure to put you under. This is BS. You deserve some happiness. And if she's unwilling to relent on her demands, you need to set boundaries. Your wife is a taker, and she's going to keep on taking until you put yourself in an early grave or stop giving. And just so we're clear, before any horse girls come at me, I'm one myself. I'd never in a million years demand my partner put himself in an early grave to pay for my chosen lifestyle. Am I the jerk for telling my estranged parents to never contact me again after they reached out to apologize? I'm 29, male. My parents divorced when I was 7. After the divorce, I initially lived with my mom and spent weekends with my dad. When I was 9, my mom moved in with her boyfriend and I was sent to live with my dad. At first, it was fine because my mom would regularly meet with me, but over time, those visits became less. When I was 12, my dad introduced me to his girlfriend, who I could tell didn't like me. I didn't understand why. By then, I was only seeing my mom once every 3 months or so. My dad told me to get used to his girlfriend, but we never really got along. A year later, my dad told me I would be living with my grandmother, his mom, from now on, because his girlfriend was pregnant and wanted a calm house. I was angry and caused a scene. His girlfriend told my dad that I was always like this around her, which was a lie, but my dad believed her and shipped me off to live with my grandmother. I told my mom I wanted to live with her, but she said she and her partner traveled the world all the time and that I needed to stay put for school. So I lived with my grandmother. My parents occasionally checked in on me, meeting me on my birthday or sending essentials until I was 16. After that, the contact became even less frequent. No birthday calls or money for essentials. My grandmother had to go back to work to support me. I had no idea that my dad had married his girlfriend or had 2 other kids, or that my mom had gotten married and had twins until my grandmother told me. I started to resent both of them, but my sweet grandmother kept me grounded. She provided for me, ensured I graduated, and helped me get into a good college. When I turned 18, as a gift to her, I changed my last name to her maiden name. She wasn't happy initially, but accepted it later. My parents hadn't contacted me or my grandmother for over a year and a half at that point. I went to college, graduated, got a good job, got engaged, and generally have a good life now. I haven't spoken to my parents in all this time. My grandmother passed 4 years ago. I tried to text and call the only phone number I had of Dad, but it didn't go through, and I was the only family member at her funeral. Recently, I got an email from my dad and mom asking to meet and reconnect. I don't know how they got my personal email. My dad says he wants to apologize and attend my wedding, and his kids want to meet their big brother. He also mentioned that my mom wants to meet me and apologize as well. He also had the audacity to write that he was disappointed in me changing my last name, but understood it. He didn't even ask me about his own mother. I've already moved on without them, hit multiple milestones in my life and career without their support. So I sent a reply stating I don't know him or my mom, added a few other harsh words, and told them to never contact me again. I told my fiance, who comes from a big family and is very family-oriented, and she was upset, saying I was too harsh. She believes I should give them another chance since it's been so long now. We had a huge argument about this. She kept saying how family is important and I should forgive and forget. Now I have a feeling she might be involved with them and she might be the one who gave them my email. I talked to my close friends and all of them say that I'm justified on my stance, but my fiance's outburst is making me rethink myself. I come from a big family and I'm also very family-oriented and believe that you are wholeheartedly not the jerk. They have no right to have any involvement in your life. They showed that you had no place in their lives and now they have no place in yours. Not the jerk. Too many partners try to be do-gooders in these situations and put their noses into places they don't belong. You need to sit your fiancé down and have a clear conversation about your boundaries when it comes to your parents. You do not need to forgive and forget. She needs to respect your decision. Her family will soon be your family, and as long as they're good people, that's probably for the best. Sometimes the best family is the one you make. Your fiancé's reaction is a big clue that she's tried to get you talking to your parents again. As her family is so important to her, she probably just doesn't understand how they made you feel. After so many years, you have no relationship with either of your parents. You need to discuss this, as she might be wanting them to participate in your wedding. My sister asked me to cancel my vacation and give her the money for her child custody legal costs. Background: my older sister did a student exchange program when she was in college. She liked it so much there that she ended up staying. Eventually, later on, she met someone. They have a kid who's 8 now, and they were planning on getting married, but their relationship fell apart before the wedding happened. My sister wanted to move back here and bring her kid with her. I always thought that if a baby had a parent with US citizenship, it automatically made the baby a citizen no matter where in the world that baby was born, but that's not true. Since my sister and her child's father aren't married and my sister had not been physically present in the US for years before their baby was born, it means their baby was not automatically a citizen. Their child could get citizenship, but that would require them to 1. Be allowed to enter the country legally as an immigrant, and 2. For them to be in the physical and legal custody of my sister. This was where the problems happened. Their kid is a citizen of her father's country, and the court there won't let my sister have custody or bring her here. All the times my sister has tried to appeal, the court says that their current country is their home. Their kid has no ties to the US and has never been here, and my sister has no right to remove them from their home country. They also say the free healthcare and better standard of living means that their child should stay there, and even talk about how much safer it is there versus here. Even though the law about an unmarried mother giving citizenship to their child born in another country has changed, it doesn't apply after the fact. My sister's child was born a year before the law changed, so it doesn't count in their case. The US has an agreement with the country my sister lives in about custody agreements and child support, so the courts here can't do anything. My sister has tried going to court and then appealing decisions both here and in the other country. She's hired lawyers in both countries. She's gone to politicians in both countries. She's had all kinds of consults with experts in international law, and no matter where she turns, the law is against her, and her ex says their kid will never be able to come here until they're 18, and then they can decide for themselves. Her choices are either to stay in the other country where her ex has their version of legal and physical custody, and sister would have visitation, not 50% but close. She can also try to meet the requirements for citizenship, or she can move back to St. Louis and then go back to the other country once or twice a year for a visit. To help my sister pay for her huge legal bills, my parents remortgaged their house. It was basically paid off, but now they are underwater on it. They gave her their entire savings as well. My mom didn't work after my sister and I were born, but she's had to get a job as a cashier because of my parents' financial situation. My dad won't be able to retire now. They're looking if there's any social assistance because of how bad things are. I'm terrified that something will happen that will make their situation worse, like an accident or an illness because of how bad the situation is. Even after all of this, they're still determined to help my sister. I don't have the money to look after them if anything goes wrong. I'm a phlebotomist. I don't have piles of money lying around to help my parents, and even now, they're still giving my sister money. My sister is almost massively in debt. Before now, neither her or my parents asked me for money, but now that my parents and my sister have found out I'm taking a vacation, they want me to cancel it and give the money to my sister instead. I finished my training in 2020, and the last 4 years in the healthcare sector have been so stressful. I haven't had more than 3 days off in a row since I started my job. I'm going on a Viking cruise, and I've been looking forward to it for over a year now. I don't want to cancel it. I currently do not have any debt, but they're pressuring me to go into debt for my sister. My parents have visited my sister's kid. They've visited the other country and regularly do video calls and phone calls, but I think my parents and my sister are still in denial about the situation. When I said I'm not canceling my cruise or going into debt to help my sister, all 3 of them got so angry with me. My sister lost it on me, and my parents backed her up and said they were disappointed in me. Besides my sister's kid, the 3 of them are the only family. But my parents and my sister won't talk to me unless it's to tell me how angry they are. It just sucks that they won't even talk to me, even though I know I'm right and won't change my mind. Never set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your parents can choose to let their money go up in flames. You don't have to add your own fuel to her dumpster fire. Once you have a kid in a country that is not yours with a partner from that country, you basically take the chance that someday you'll have to give up your own country for the kid. If your sister tried to bring her kid back to America and the father wasn't agreeing with it, that's a felony that would land her in jail. I have 2 kids with an American man, and even though we split 10 years ago, I did not try to take them away from him so I could go back to Europe. Kids deserve to be raised by both their parents, unless one of them doesn't care and is giving them up. So I'll be in the US until my kids are grown up. Does it suck? Yes, it does. I've missed weddings, funerals, and family reunions back home, because I don't have the budget to go back whenever I please. Is it worth it? Of course it is. For my kids, and that's what matters the most. Even if OP's sister had all the money in the world, I don't think she could convince a court that what her kid needs is to be separated from their dad because she wants to go back home. That's insane, delusional, and selfish in my opinion. The parents should have kept their resources to go visit and help her come visit with her kid. They were fools to throw away what they had for something that most likely won't go anywhere. I think this woman is using me for free childcare. I, 24 male, teach boxing in my spare time, and 1 day a week I teach it to kids. There's a mom who I'm starting to feel like is taking advantage of these classes. She's increasingly late with picking up her kid after the session. To give some context, this woman is rich. It's not that she's out working a job, she's a stay-at-home parent, no other kids. She told me all of this because another thing she loves to do is have really long conversations with me on top of already being late. She's been late most of March, 3 classes. I talked to her about it at the end of the month and she apologized and said it won't happen again. But it did, 2 times now. So I started timing her. The second week of April, no class the first week, she arrived 45 minutes late, then spent maybe 20 minutes talking to me. The other day I timed her again. She got there around the 1 hour mark. I made a point to show her my timer and I gave her a warning that I will remove her kid from my class. She tried to derail the conversation, so I raised the timer and turned it on again. She said I was being unjustifiably rude, her exact words. I explained politely that I have other obligations and her consistent lateness throws my schedule off. She didn't want to have this conversation, stomped to the driver's side of her car. Her kid lowered his window to say thank you and bye to me. I told him bye and added, "Tell your mom to stop being late." She reported our conversation to my boss, but twisted it. She said that I threatened her kid with getting kicked out of the program. I didn't say it like that, and I didn't say it to her kid. There are other instructors. I was just implying to her that I won't have him in my group. My boss still gave me a lecture about how I don't have that power and can't make the statements that I did. He went over professionalism and how I'm being too hard on this mom who could have other circumstances going on. But I'm not getting paid for the hour after this class that I spend hanging out with her kid. The kid is great, but I have things to do. For people who work with kids, what's the etiquette here? Do I give parents grace? I told my boss I'm going to start adding up all the hours and one of them is going to have to pay me. Am I the jerk? Update. I took various notes from the people who gave me tips here. I wrote a detailed email to my boss and CC'd other people who run the program, including co-instructors. I did this for transparency, accountability, and to put pressure on my boss to provide a policy around the issue instead of him dealing with all of us individually and case by case. My boss didn't respond to the email. Instead, he called me in to see him. I kind of had a feeling he'd do that. He asked me why I sent the email CCing everyone and was clearly not happy about my approach. He kept trying to minimize the situation and make me feel that I'm in the wrong. He told me that I'm being greedy, that my attitude about one parent being late is exaggerated and I'm looking for problems. I should essentially just wait around after hours if I need to sometimes, unpaid, because it's a program for kids. I should do this with some heart and do it for the kids. I had to turn my face to hide the fact that I wanted to laugh in that moment, but mostly I was frustrated. Having proper policies in place not only protects the staff, it protects the kids, not to mention his business. After I made my perspective clear, in a mostly professional manner, he came around a little. Unfortunately, he flat out told me he will not back pay me for the time that I've logged waiting for this mom, but he will implement a late policy moving forward. He's followed through on that. He tried to throw in other useless incentives for me, but I didn't accept them. That mom wasn't late this week. She did try to catch my eye when she picked her son up and I ignored her. She ended up getting out of her car and asked me if I saw her waving. I kept ignoring her. She wore me down because she kept following me around while I locked up. I informed her why she's getting the silent treatment. She apologized and also tried to write me a check on the spot. I didn't take the money. I told her, honestly, I might quit instead. I'm sharing this because the woman clearly lives in her own world. Here, just take my money and stop being mad at me. I was so furious. It took everything in me to keep the words that I said to her to a minimum. I'm on the fence about just letting this go. Maybe the program will get smoother with time. It's not a lot of money worth fighting over. I'm so disappointed in my boss. I've known him for a long time as a mentor and a friend. Being his employee has been something else. The program itself is very new and disorganized. Due to differences of opinion about how it's run, I doubt that I'll stay with it. This is my first time working a job that involves kids. My actual profession is unrelated to boxing. This was mostly something I picked up spontaneously because I saw the merit in it and I wanted to do my part to help. I admit I could use the extra money too. I don't mean to be greedy or stingy, but I live in an insanely expensive city and I take care of someone with expensive medical bills. Final update. I got other instructors to get on my boss's case with me. I also informed him I have to quit the kids class and I will quit the training I do with the adults too, and leave the gym and our friendship if he doesn't hear me out respectfully. The reason I wanted to avoid reporting my boss is because I have a relationship with him and nearly everyone at this gym going back almost 10 years. I didn't want to resort to making a report without exploring every other option first. My boss caved. I'll get paid for the extra hours I logged on the next paycheck. Moving forward, I will no longer teach the kids, because although we have a policy and late pickup fee in place, as it stands right now, instructors are still responsible to stay back until the last kid leaves, and my boss doesn't want to negotiate on that. I can't stay behind after classes. I have other obligations the same day as the class I teach. It's unfortunate because this one parent is the only one currently taking advantage of the system because she can afford to. That kid's mom was late this week again by 30 minutes. Showed her my timer. I also told her that I've quit. She asked me if the late warnings reset when a new instructor takes over. They don't. She then tried to hire me out from under my boss as her kid's private instructor. I said no, but I might reconsider if she ever wants lessons. Alright, that's the end of that. I feel bad I couldn't stick it out with the kids program, but it's too disorganized for me right now. 401k with a side of revenge. When our first kid was born, my ex made me quit my job. When our second kid was 2, I found out about my husband's affair. By then, our relationship had completely fallen apart and I kicked him out. That was in 2012. I couldn't afford daycare to work and had no family support. He refused to give any money to take care of the kids, saying, "The courts haven't ordered me to give you a dime." He lied to the banks and had my accounts frozen. The judge finally ordered him to pay child and spousal support 6 months after I kicked him out. It was $2,562 a month. He refused to pay it until the garnishment kicked in, and by then, he was $6,000 behind in support. I used that to get permission to move away. I remarried a year after the divorce. I checked the court documents, and there was a little box that said spousal support stopped upon remarriage if that box was checked. It wasn't checked, so I figured I was good. Instead of filing for his retirement, I just took that year of spousal support, $12,000, and left it alone. Spousal support was only ordered for 2 years. In 2017, he filed for sole custody of the kids out of nowhere. That was when he found out I had remarried and he had paid spousal support to me during the first year of my marriage. I told him I took that money instead of filing for my share of his retirement. I said if he let me keep that $12,000, I wouldn't file to split his 401k. He demanded that I repay the spousal support. The judge ordered me to repay it, but increased child support and deducted the repayment from that. It ended up that I got an extra $20 a month and he repaid himself. He dropped his bid for custody in exchange for 2 extra weeks in the summer. I pursued the retirement account split. He refused to cooperate and dragged it out for 4 years. It was so bad, they sanctioned him and he had to pay me $600 a month for a year in addition to child support. They also charged him with contempt. In January of 2021, he proposed to his girlfriend. In May of 2021, I finally got the disbursement from his 401k. I won't say how much it was, but it was about 4 times the amount of spousal support overpayment. I had no idea it would be that much. I had thought it would be around $12,000, which is why I thought keeping that year of spousal and not filing for his retirement account was a fair trade. Had he not tried to take the kids away from me, I never would have filed to split the account. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. His fiancée emailed me recently and told me that it's my fault he won't marry her because I cleaned out his retirement account. She said I shouldn't have stolen his money. I told her that I gave him the option to let me keep that year of spousal support or take it back and I could file for his retirement. He chose to have me file for his retirement. I told her that if he really wanted to marry her and protect his assets, they could get a prenup so he wouldn't have to worry about it. She said she shouldn't have to sign a prenup because I robbed him. I never asked to be financially dependent on him. He clearly indicated he wanted a court order to take care of his kids, so I got him one. I tried to be fair and take the lesser amount by taking the spousal support and not filing for his retirement, but he wouldn't let me. In summary, my ex refused to pay me until the support orders dropped, refused to pay me until they revoked his license, tried to get me in trouble for accepting spousal support overpayment, and in the end, it cost him a lot of money out of his 401k. Karen demands my son reads for 2 hours a day. So I, 45 male, have a son, Callum, who's 15, with my ex-wife, Amanda. We had an amicable divorce when Callum was 2, and so far, we've been co-parenting quite well. Now, I could say a lot of things about Amanda's parenting, but the long and short of it is that she and her new husband cater their parenting style to their 2 younger kids together, who are 11 and 8. Because of this, he's decreased his time at their house ever since he got the choice, and now he spends every other weekend at their house. Around a month ago, Amanda and her husband made a reading rule for the kids. The 8-year-old has to read 30 minutes a day, the 11-year-old has to read for an hour a day, and Callum has to read for 2 hours a day. I have no idea why they did this. I think it's because the 8-year-old is falling behind in his reading level, and they wanted to keep things fair between the kids. I think that this is ridiculous, as Callum is a very smart kid already, and he needs that time for homework and relaxing since he doesn't have that much free time to begin with. Amanda let me know that she expected me to enforce the reading rule when Callum is at my house too. I told her that I would not. She said that it was unfair to Callum's half-siblings that he could just leave for the house and not have to follow their rules, while they had to follow the rule no matter what. I told her tough luck. It's my house and I make the rules here, not her. Well, now Callum is thinking about not staying with her at all anymore due to the increasing strictness of her and her husband's rules. She told me that it's all my fault that he doesn't want to be around her anymore because I was so lax with the rules. I'm pretty sure I'm in the right here, but I thought it might be a good idea to get some perspective. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Requiring your kid to read 2 hours a day on top of required textbook reading and assigned English class reading seems like a good way to inspire a dislike for the hobby. Not the jerk. So how many hours a day are she and her husband reading? They should lead by example, and being full-grown adults, they probably should be reading for 4 hours a day. You know, to keep it fair. Not the jerk. This is ridiculous. 2 hours of reading on top of potentially hours of homework every day? She's damaging her relationship with him and pushing him away, and that's sad, but on her. Funny she's talking about fairness, but the 8-year-old has to read 30 minutes and the 15-year-old has to read for 2 hours, despite the 15-year-old no doubt having more homework and often more school commitments and other things drawing on their time. If it was 30 minutes as part of his homework, I could maybe understand. But making him read for 4 times more than the 8-year-old, who actually needs the practice as part of homework when he doesn't, is not fair. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know.
There are many ways to learn new things, and forcing yourself to sit down with some boring book that you have no interest in is not the only way to learn.
Yeah, we've read thousands of hours of Reddit stories over the past 5 years, and it hasn't made us any smarter, to be honest.
Yeah, all it's done for us is made us lose faith in humanity.
Refuse to approve an expense report for going less than 1% over? Okay then. So I was on an off-site short-term project. Coming from one of the cheapest to live countries in Europe and staying for months in Singapore, the project location, I had found some places that I could be eating for pretty cheap, and the food was good and within my taste palette. We were getting, let's say a random number, $60 per day for food expenses, but I was spending somewhere around $25 to $30 on average, with the highest ever getting to just under $50. Short project going long, drawn over 10 months by the point of this story, and our customer's client is raising a ton of issues. 70% of them are not really an issue. Discussed this a few times with some guys in my company, and a manager told me to take the client out for dinner and some drinks. He would confirm the extra expense, just be careful to not go too much overboard on the expenses. Specifically asked what that means, and he told me to try not to go over $200 to $250. We go out, and neither me nor the client really drink much, so we end up having some food and a drink each. The guys at the restaurant know me well by that point, and almost always do some rounding on the bill or bring something extra to the table on the house, and with them bringing plenty of finger food, I end up with a bill of $60.68. But yes, about 70 cents above the daily limit, way below the $200 allowance for that. End of month, I send the report in and put a special note for that day and night. Expense report goes through my company with no problems, but the customer, our company's customer, flags that receipt up as not acceptable and not to be covered. They put me in direct communication with the customer and I explained, nope, Not accepted, not covered. Talk again with my company and tell them the situation and that manager advised me to do so, as well as mentioned he would confirm. But unfortunately, the guy is out sick and not returning for at least 2 weeks. The customer must have this settled by the 15th of the month, and he wants to hear specifically from the manager that I was advised to act in such a way and approved by that manager for him to cover it. This is getting crazy and out of hand, so my boss, owner of the company, just covers it from his side, the full $60.68, not just the 68 cents. Customer says no receipt that goes over $60 limit will be approved. Unfortunately for me, the customer is local to Singapore and he randomly drops in at the job site, and I get to see him the day after the resolution above, and all comments were written in emails. Face to face, I tell him, "You do realize that I spent an average of less than $27 a day from the allowed $60 a day. This was laughable to be denied." He probably was offended and he yells at me again the, "No receipts over $60 will be covered." Well, cue malicious compliance. At all 3 places that I eat every day for the past 10 months, they agree to print $60 receipts every time I eat at their place. They even agreed to split in half the remaining value between me and a tip to the server. I had requested for the entire amounts to go to the servers as tips, as I just cared for the petty revenge, but apparently all of them fell to 100% tip every day is uncomfortable for them. Next month's expense report is sent out, and the customer calls me directly, seething, and asks why every single daily receipt is at $60 from a specific date onwards. I just reply with, "No receipts over $60 will be covered, so I have to fit my meals within the allowance." He called to complain to my company, but the relevant person told him that they didn't understand and to please explain what agreement was broken. He never came back as far as I know. I continued charging the max for the remaining 2 months there, netting me a cool $700 and even better service, food, and chef experiments that were otherwise only internal to the staff of the restaurants. To be honest, I had to pay and having to deal with the idiot customer even more after that, but he was a handful before it as well. I can say that the project took at least a year of my life with all the stress and nerves. My sister had my bike stolen as revenge because of me eating at the hospital cafeteria. I, 23 male, recently posted on Am I the Jerk for advice because my parents and sister were angry at me for regularly eating at the hospital cafeteria because it's close to my work. I enjoy the peace and quiet there on the days I do show up to eat, but this situation escalated so quickly that I can't even believe something so dumb actually happened. My sister did the pettiest thing she's ever done to me, and for completely undeserved reasons too. When my sister found out I was eating at the hospital cafeteria, she went off on me over how that food is just for the people who work there. We ended up in a big argument about it, and I told her it wasn't like I was taking food from the mouths of patients. Then she went to our parents and got them to side with her like always. They backed her up on how the hospital cafeteria was not a place I should be casually eating at, and we had a huge argument over it. They spent days hounding me and telling me I was in the wrong and demanding that I stop. So I went to Reddit, and here I learned that what I was doing was not wrong at all, but it's a very common thing for people to do to go eat at hospital cafeterias just because they like it. I hoped that the situation would just fade away, but a few days later, my sister called me asking if I had stopped eating at the hospital. I said no, and then it started all over again. My parents then called me fuming and acting like I was supposed to stop going because they said so. I reminded them that I don't live under their roof anymore, and this is exactly the kind of reason why I moved out. They take my sister's side in everything. They huffed and puffed about it. This time, the fight didn't stay at home though. Other relatives found out because my sister tried to broaden her support. She was so dead set on enforcing her will upon me that she went looking for help from other relatives. But our parents were the only ones on her side. My uncle was mad at both of them when he found out what happened. He told my parents they were only siding with my sister because she's their favorite, and they're terrible parents for ever playing favorites to begin with. Then my cousin went to eat with me at the hospital cafeteria and said he'd like to go there once a week too, as he also works pretty nearby and he rides his bike everywhere. We've run into each other at lunch there once already since then. He was actually rather pleased to find out the food was made healthier than most other places. He's a bit of a picky eater, so this place is kind of like his new lunch hangout. And my sister got even angrier after finding out there were other people in the family eating there too now. Once outed, my parents backed down due to their embarrassment. They apologized to me and gave me some malarkey that they honestly thought eating at a hospital was weird and that they felt like they just needed to defend my sister. I told them they had been placating my sister for so long that it's all they do whenever she starts something with anyone. She's been treating me like a condescending control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older. And they just kept enabling that. But I won't put up with it anymore. My parents ended up conceding and apologized. Then they made my sister apologize to me too, and I could tell she hated every second of it because she tried to speak through her teeth at first. Later on, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology, but it felt more like a show to look good to the rest of the family because they told everyone about it before it even happened. The dinner was great, I can't deny that. My parents had cooked a turkey, arguably one of my favorite things to eat. I love the drumsticks slathered with gravy. Yeah, I'm kind of a pig when I eat them, but I can't help it. My sister always thought it was hilarious, and that's one of the few things I don't mind her laughing about, so I thought nothing of why she was so giggly at dinner. Later after the family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I had parked it in the backyard out of sight, but it was gone now. I freaked out because it's my only mode of transportation. My parents did panic a bit with me, but my sister did just the opposite. She actually looked happy and was still giggling. I immediately suspected her, and she played innocent. She even gave the, "I can't believe you think I'd do something like that." I already knew she's extremely petty, but this was a whole new level for her. So I said that I was going to go over to the neighbor because I know they have cameras and they'd have seen what happened, and then I'd call the cops. My sister suddenly looked panicked, and I got mad and said I knew it was her. I demanded my bike back. She started crying and saying she didn't do anything, and our parents were immediately taking her side while scolding me for daring to accuse her. So I had enough and said I was going to the neighbors to ask to check their cameras, and then I'd be calling the police. My sister finally fessed up and called me to come back. The looks on our parents' faces after they had just offended her were priceless. My sister said she was just so angry at me for having made her apologize for something she still believed she was right about. So she planned to have a couple of her friends come by and grab my bike during dinner. She said her friends were in a minivan with it just down the street. She then started saying that I couldn't call the police on her anyway because I'm her big brother. Our parents backed her up on that too, but I pulled out my phone and started marching outside again. They ran after me with my sister begging and crying for me to stop. I called her a brat, and then I told my parents I couldn't believe they were still defending her when she was acting this way. Our parents finally hit their enabling limit with her and told her to make her friends bring my bike back immediately. She got on her phone while sniffling and called her friends up. But then she suddenly ran into her room to talk to them. I couldn't hear a thing she said through the door because it was all in whispers, and our parents looked very worried too. My sister would never have willingly admitted she had my bike stolen. She just kept sobbing that it was only a prank over and over again. And she also kept using the excuse that it's just a cheap bike anyway. I bought it used some months ago for about $50, but it's in great shape and it's my main mode of transportation. My sister kept looking at our parents to back her up, and that time they just couldn't. So she just slumped down in a chair, hugging her knees and waiting with the rest of us. My sister looked increasingly freaked out the longer her friends took to bring my bike back and was repeatedly texting them. Even though my sister said her friends were just down the street, it took them roughly an hour to bring my bike back. They finally pulled up in the minivan with my bike shoved in the back, and it was completely soaked and muddy, like it had just been pulled out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike is a 700C, so it's too tall for either of them to ride. So they just drove right up and stole the bike by dragging it into their van as fast as they could before taking off. I say they stole it because I was almost certain in the moment my sister had told them to dispose of my bike. Had I not pointed out the neighbors have cameras, I may not have gotten it back. When her friends did finally arrive, their legs were all muddy and wet, nearly up to their knees. They both begged me not to report them to the police for taking my bike. I asked while recording them to tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. Did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? They broke down and said yes. My sister wanted them to take the bike and dump it in a pond a few miles away, and then they had to go back and get it when they realized they were caught. My bike had been near completely submerged in muddy water. Thankfully, I didn't have many added accessories on it other than a detachable headlight and my water bottle, but the water bottle was missing. I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I had them tell our parents too. They laid into my sister until she was bawling on the floor, kicking and pounding like a toddler. I had never seen my sister acting this way before, even when she was a toddler. Then she shut herself in her room. Her friends were banned from ever coming to my parents' house again. Then my sister was forced to come out of her room by our mother and make another big apology to me. Our father then forced her to wash and oil my bike from stem to stern under his supervision While I took apart the headlight and cleaned it out and let it dry. By the time my sister was done, it was dark outside. She glared at me like I was the devil when she came back in the house, but our parents shut her attitude right down and said that they've never been more embarrassed by her in their lives. She went back to crying in her room. I had a very frank discussion with my parents about my sister's childlike behavior and how it stemmed from them spoiling and enabling her. I said I couldn't believe I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she was still on the floor crying like a toddler, kicking and pounding, showed that she's still mentally a kid because of them. And they kept making me the scapegoat when she messed up, so she barely knows any sense of accountability. For once, they didn't argue with me about it, and my father silently drove me and my bike back to my apartment with his SUV. He also gave me some money to replace my bike's missing water bottle before we parted. My sister and her clique used to harass me a fair bit when we ran into each other. They made fun of me as a group whenever possible, and I usually just ignored them because they bored me, and that really seemed to tick them off. But after the bike incident, I got sent numerous messages from numbers I didn't know going off on me for making my sister cry over a silly prank. Knowing her, my sister probably fed everyone she knew a very different story of what actually happened. I texted lengthy replies of what actually happened and even stated I have recordings of her friends admitting the truth. Some people at my sister's college found out what actually went down. Maybe from my texts, maybe her friends spilled the beans. But it embarrassed my sister so much, she came home having a crying tantrum about how people there were calling her and her friends jerks and bike thieves. I may not have gone to college, but I know students who need them are very protective of their bikes. A lot of them live on shoestring budgets after all. My sister said someone even joked that they shouldn't leave their bike around her because it might just disappear if she had to apologize to anyone. My sister ended up so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days to have her pity party. My parents called me up to try and turn everything on me again. I reminded them about the discussion we had days before and that they need to stop babying her and let her deal with the repercussions of her own actions. If she fails her classes again, it's because she's not trying like she should be. Then I went off on them about how they were just looking for someone to blame to make her feel better. She made the problem, not me, and I wasn't going to be the one they make the scapegoat anymore. My sister is an adult and she needs to act like it. They sounded defeated and then apologized before ending the call. Looks like they were genuinely hoping I'd just sit back and take the blame so that my sister would get better. But I will never do that again. Now my parents are trying to pretend this all never happened, and my sister, as well as her clique, are avoiding me at all costs, which I suppose is fine with me because I don't want any more drama. But the next time something like this happens, I won't take it from them. Your sister is flat out unhinged. Retaliating by stealing and dumping your bike because you ate at the hospital? That had nothing to do with her. She doesn't own the hospital. The cost of the food wasn't coming out of her pocket. And stealing a bike is a prank? This goes beyond a joke when it's your primary transportation. It would have cost you way more to replace it. The cherry on top would have been forwarding the message from unknown numbers to your parents to deal with. If she considers herself an adult, this was her introduction to mess around and find out. Welcome to the world of consequences. Not your problem that she got ridiculed at college and couldn't handle it. Have you ever had something stolen from you? If so, what was it? Please let us know.
This one dude stole my holographic Ninetales back in middle school. He's actually no longer with us, if you know what I mean. Karma ain't no joke sometimes.
Would I be the jerk if I forced my son to end his relationship if his grades don't go up? I'm 47, female. My son, John, who's 16, has always been a great student. Several of his teachers have told me he's one of their best students. I never had to worry about him not doing homework or studying, and he's currently taking all AP and honors as a junior. He began dating a girl last semester, and his grades have plummeted this semester. I know for a fact it's because he's spending most of his time either with his girlfriend or talking to her on the phone. I've caught her talking to him at 11 on a school night. I've never been a very strict parent. I never needed to be, but I'm considering forbidding him from dating her until his grades go up. It's going to be finals week in his school in a couple of weeks. He should be able to turn his grades around if he does well on them. And to me, it seems like the only way for that to happen is if I order him to come home straight after school and take away his phone. I've tried talking to him about how his grades have gone down, and he brushed me off by saying that the teachers are being unfair or that everyone did poorly on a test. I believed him at first. But now, it's been multiple exams and projects that he's flunked. So, would I be the jerk? You're the jerk. This is not going to go the way you think it is. You think that by forcing him to end his relationship, they will lie and say they broke up and didn't, that his grades are magically going to get better? No. Instead, they will get worse. This is not the way to handle this. Also, investigate his claims that the teacher is acting a certain way towards students or that everyone failed the exam. Because if the majority failed an exam, then there are bigger issues at hand. You would be the jerk. 51-year-old father of 2 here. Your son is so in love that he's throwing away his school career, and you think trying to destroy the relationship will work? He's failing at time management. Be a parent and teach him how to improve that skill. Give him structure by setting a time to do his work every day. His reward can be seeing and talking to his girlfriend after he's finished. Also, talk to his teachers about why his grades are going down. Update. The general consensus was that I should not make my son break up with his girlfriend. Regardless, both my husband and I were in agreement that something needed to be done. This Thursday night, after my son returned home, my husband and I sat him down. We told him that we were disappointed with his behavior and performance in school. He was grounded from now until the end of the school year. We would be taking his phone away. Every weekday, he would come straight home from school where he would study for his final exams until bedtime. On the weekends, he would not be allowed to leave the house but would study and do schoolwork. He would not be allowed to contact his girlfriend during this time. We told him that if we caught him attempting to sneak out, we would sell his Xbox and Nintendo Switch, then his TV if he tried to sneak out more than once. This same punishment applies if the school informs us that he was absent from class. If by the end of the year he has raised his grades to at least all C's and B's, he would be allowed to spend every waking minute with his girlfriend for all we cared over the summer. But if they haven't, his grounding continues indefinitely, and we're prepared to send him to spend the summer with his grandparents in New Mexico to make sure he and his girlfriend don't have contact. We told him that he needs to apologize to his teachers and ask if there's any way that he can raise his grade in their class. We could tell he was shaken. We always have been very relaxed parents. This is the first time he's ever had to be grounded. But our punishment seems to have worked. Already 3 teachers have emailed us. His math teacher is kind enough to allow him to redo homework that he didn't do. His English teacher is letting him redo an essay that we know is 2 weeks late, and his biology teacher is letting him redo a project he did poorly on. After all of this brilliant advice, you are still lax parents. Look again at what people suggested. Help him with time management, structure. Help him with studying, with the essays he failed. Talk to the teachers yourself. You took the laziest route possible with this bizarre 24/7 studying rule, a terrible study technique in my opinion, putting all the work and pressure on the kid and then pat yourself on the back. And you're still fixated on breaking up his relationship. As an experienced tutor, I'm so fed up with parents putting no effort or research into their kids' education, then being shocked when they don't get high grades. It's definitely getting worse too. You're the jerk. I said it in your last post. Life has to be balanced. You cannot expect your son to live school and studying 24/7. You should have made him study 2 to 3 hours a night and 5 to 6 hours a day on weekends until school was over. Your punishment is ridiculous, and you will breed massive resentment. It may give you the result you're looking for to start with, but all you've taught your son is to not trust you because he will completely take his social life away. Sounds like he was such a good kid, the parents never had to really parent. If this is how they're acting on his first time being a teenager with teenager problems and saying they've been relaxed before this, something tells me that kid was just naturally disciplined and self-motivated. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she's an idiot for expecting her family to be generous with gifts for her marriage? When I married my husband, we had a small wedding, 150 guests. Trust me, that's small for our families. We paid for everything ourselves. Altogether, we spent about $25,000. It was in our budget and we had saved up for it, and that included everything. My dress, the wedding party's dresses and tux rentals, catering, you name it, we paid, and it came under our budget. Our guests were family and close friends, the way it should be, and they were generous with gifts, both from our registry and cash in envelopes. When everything was said and done, our house was filled with great stuff that we needed, and our savings were several $1,000s over where we started before we paid for the wedding. My husband's sister just eloped in February, and nobody found out about it until early April when she sent the links to her wedding registry. Not too many people have bought anything off of it yet, and she's getting upset about that. All she talks about whenever we speak is how cheap everyone is. Every conversation leads back to the same topic. After more than a month of this, I've had enough. I asked her if she understood why we got gifts when I married her brother, like at our physical wedding that took place at a church and then a reception at a rented ballroom. She said I was treating her like an idiot and that she understood the difference between our weddings. I asked her why she would expect the exact same treatment for 2 very different events. I said that only an idiot would think the outcome would be the same in both situations. She's mad at me. My husband said he was also frustrated with her stupidity, but that I should apologize for calling her an idiot. Not the jerk. Most people are not going to buy a gift for a wedding they were not invited to. So a person gets married. I'm not invited to anything, and I'm still expected to buy them a gift? If I'm incredibly close to that person, maybe I would buy something small. But if not, I would only offer some congratulations, and she can thank her lucky stars that nobody has answered sarcastically to receiving her registry. While you are 100% correct on everything you said, it's usually not considered a nice thing to call someone an idiot. You may have been able to phrase it a little gentler, or maybe have brought it up sooner, so it did not get you to your breaking point. You should probably clear the air with the idiot remark and then head home to use one of your awesome wedding gifts. Very slight jerk, though I am smiling at what you said because it was a great response to her comment that you were treating her like an idiot. You're the jerk, only slightly, but only because I don't understand why you felt the need to interject into her pity party to call her an idiot. To be clear, she is an idiot, but you could have kept that to yourself. If being around her complaining was too much for you, then you should have tried spending less time around her. So, people should annoy you repeatedly and you not say anything? If it's a stranger, you can just walk away, but with family and friends sometimes you have to tell them the truth. Stop with the sensitivity. People need to know, so people learn. If you're always the bigger person, you are always the person who gets dumped on. How do you know when you're not doing something right? Someone tells you, and hopefully you go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time." Isn't it better for crap people to learn than have to constantly repeat their bad behavior? Am I the jerk for telling my husband's grandparents that they shouldn't have surprised their grandkids on Mother's Day? Sunday, my husband, who's 25, and his two siblings, who are 27 and 22, were planning to spend the day with their maternal side of the family, but their paternal grandparents asked if they could do something too. So we arranged a lunch for them to get together. It was an earlier lunch, so they could make it in time for the other things they had planned with their maternal side. The thing they were not expecting was their dad and his wife, who they are no contact with, to be there. Their grandparents surprised them with this after we all got there, and it was very awkward. It was also my third time meeting their dad. Their dad's wife kept watching them and trying to get their attention. They ignored her. Then she outright asked where her Happy Mother's Day wishes were, which they ignored. She asked about gifts and tried to claim the gifts all three brought for their grandmother. Brother-in-law told her nothing was for her, and why would she ever think that she'd get anything? Their grandfather tried to calm things down by talking over everyone, but it didn't work because their dad's wife just got louder. She started listing off all the gifts she'd received from them when they were kids and living with her and her husband, my father-in-law. Sister-in-law told her they weren't ever actually from them and that their dad had bought all those gifts and added their names to it, but it was never from them. Their dad's wife then turned on sister-in-law and blamed her, saying she manipulated her brothers to feel the same way she did, and that it was wrong because they were all young enough when their birth mother passed for them to embrace and benefit from a new mother. My husband laughed at that and said sister-in-law was the youngest and only 5 when their mother passed, and their dad went out to replace her ASAP because he was pathetic and didn't want to raise his own kids. Brother-in-law added that they were never going to accept some random person who came in months after their mom passed and attempted to assert her dominance as their mother. He said he didn't care if their dad was unfair to her as well because she was downright evil to try and replace their mom. It got so heated that I suggested to my husband that we just move on. Later that night, my husband's grandparents called me to apologize and said they had no idea how things went so wrong. This is where I might be the jerk, because I told them they shouldn't have surprised their grandkids by inviting father-in-law and his wife like that if they wanted the lunch to go well. I told his grandparents that they know my husband and his siblings are no contact and have no love for their dad or his wife, and they know they used to fight all the time. His grandparents told me it shouldn't need to be a surprise and I should understand their point of view better. They also told me it's rude to rub it in after they apologized to me. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk for stating facts, and hopefully helping avoid any future surprises, especially when they claimed that they didn't know how things had gone so wrong. But out of curiosity, have they actually apologized to their grandkids, the people that they actually ambushed? OP. My husband and sister-in-law didn't get an apology for sure. Not entirely positive about brother-in-law, but I would assume no. Work my hours or we'll find someone who will. So there I was, working at a mid-size IT firm as a software developer. My team had always been pretty laid back, focusing on results rather than the exact hours we were glued to our desks. Our projects were delivered on time, our clients were happy, and our team morale was high. That is, until we got a new project manager. Let's call him Dave. Dave was fresh from a highly regimented corporate background and had ideas about proper workplace management, which basically meant micromanaging everything. He'd schedule unnecessary daily status meetings, demanded we fill out hourly work logs, and insisted that everyone strictly adhere to 9 to 5 office hours with minimal breaks. One day, during one of his infamous efficiency crackdowns, he sent out an email with a new policy that all coding must be done strictly within office hours to ensure collaboration and supervision. This was ridiculous because creative work like coding often requires flexible hours for maximum productivity. But Dave was adamant, and he ended his email with, "If you think you can find a loophole, think again. Follow the rules, or we'll find someone who will." Challenge accepted, Dave. I decided to comply meticulously. I coded strictly between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., not a minute earlier, not a second later. If I encountered a bug or was in the middle of a complex piece of code, too bad. 5 p.m. means the end, no matter what. My teammates, fed up with being treated like school kids, followed my lead. The results were predictable. Projects that usually took a couple of weeks started dragging on. Tasks that we could have completed in days with a bit of overtime took much longer because we couldn't capitalize on the bursts of late afternoon productivity we were used to. Our workflow was severely disrupted, and the quality of our work started to deteriorate. Dave noticed, of course. He had to answer to upper management for the sudden drop in productivity and lack of commitment, which he knew was a result of our dissatisfaction with his new policy. When upper management called for an impromptu Zoom meeting with all of us at 4:30 p.m. to address the ongoing project delays, the entire team logged in to explain our situation. In the meeting, Dave spent half an hour shifting blame and going off on individual team members. He didn't even mention the 9 to 5 policy that had led to the whole situation. As the clock ticked towards 5 p.m., the tension in the virtual room was palpable, and our team hatched a plan over text. Right on cue, as the clock struck 5, one of the employees spoke up. In compliance with Dave's 9 to 5 rule, we must log off now. Without missing a beat, every team member clicked Leave Meeting, leaving a stunned Dave to face the executives alone. This abrupt mass exit highlighted the impracticality of Dave's rigid policy, making it clear to the executives that change was necessary. The incident, quickly dubbed as the 5 o'clock Zoom exodus, led to another meeting, where Dave was publicly admonished and instructed to abolish his strict rules in favor of more flexibility. And as for me and my team, we made sure to celebrate our little victory with a well-deserved happy hour. After 5 p.m., of course. My husband says our house will never be mine. How do I move past this? My husband and I have been married for almost 1 year and have been together for 7. I work a job in media while he works as a therapist. We've been living in my inherited home that has been in my family for many years. Over the past few years, we have both agreed the house and the location is just not ideal. With the housing market being what it is, we've sucked it up and continued living here. Recently, we were offered to purchase my husband's family home. It's a good house that needs a lot of work, but I'm confident we can do what we need to for under $15,000 in renovations. So we're planning to move there and begin renovating. We were both happy and excited until the other day when we were talking about it. Out of nowhere, he told me, "I want you to know this house will never be yours. If we divorce or anything, you will have no right to live here anymore." And I found this hurtful and odd. This was never a discussion in the years we have lived in our current home. I would never plan on taking his family home if we were to separate. But it really hurt to hear this, especially when we're trying to have kids. I told him it would be a marital asset since I'm paying half the mortgage and half the renovations. I would never fight you for the house, but I don't plan on getting divorced. This made him very upset. He said that he would rather not move in if there's a chance a judge would determine I had any rights over the home. Was I wrong? How do I move past this with him? So, from what I understand, it's a family home, but you are paying on the mortgage half and half and paying to renovate? And he said no to you having ownership at all? Then no way. He can purchase it on his own, renovate it on his own, and you keep yours as a backup from this point forward. Rent it out, and you keep that income. Do not pay a penny towards a house that will never be yours. Not 1 penny. This is a huge red flag. He's been living in your paid-off family home, and you're about to buy his family home together, and he doesn't want you to have any ownership? Here's what I would do. 1. Don't sell your family home. Instead, rent it out, market being what it is, for side income. Do not add his name to the deed. Do not use any of the profits towards purchasing his family home. 2. Separate your finances stat. Have a joint account where you each put in X% of your paycheck for joint bills, such as groceries, utilities, insurance, etc. 3. Tell him you will agree his family home is 100% his on one condition. The entire purchase, including repairs, now needs to come out of his pocket, not yours, not the joint account, and you will not be paying mortgages. If he doesn't agree, don't move in. 4. Side-eye him. He's shown you who he is. Depending on how he moves forward, this might be the end of the road for me. My Karen ex-wife demands I babysit for her while her husband is in the hospital. Things are complicated, but I'll try to sum it up for you. I, 34 male, met my ex-wife 7 years ago. We dated for 1 year and were married for 2 before we divorced. When we met, she already had 2 kids from her previous relationship, Patrick, who's 13, and Luna, who's 10. We have 1 son together, Tony, who's 5 now. My own relationship with her kids was good, but they never treated me like their dad or something like that, because their dad was involved in their life. Although my wife had primary custody, we all understood I was a stepdad and we were fine with it. My relationship with my ex-wife was good and I thought very loving. Although after our divorce, I realized that she used to talk a lot about her ex-husband, comparing the 2 of us and stuff like that, which is definitely weird, but I didn't notice it at the time. Well, turns out that she really couldn't forget her ex and she ended up cheating with him. This was very hard to process when I found out, thanks to one of her friends, and our divorce was not easy. When her family found out about her infidelity, they got very angry at her and went no contact with her. All of this happened 4 years ago. Ever since, her and her husband had 2 more babies together, one who's 3 and the other is a few months old. Her husband got diagnosed with cancer around November of last year. Even after everything they did to me, I still feel sorry for them and their kids. It's a sad situation, which makes me think I'm a jerk. My ex and I have shared custody with our son, but ever since her husband got sick, my son has been staying with me more days, as sometimes my ex's husband has to stay at the hospital and my ex has to help him. I'm okay with this, of course. However, my ex asked me if I can start taking all of her kids home with me when I pick my son up in these kinds of emergencies. I told her that I don't want to do that, and instead she should ask a friend to take care of them or try to pay a babysitter. I pay good childcare, and I know they're not spending all that money on my son at the moment because he's mostly with me. I think it'll be enough to pay for a couple of hours. She told me her friends don't want to help her anymore and her family still doesn't talk to her. I told them they need to figure out a solution. I will only help take care of my son. I feel like a jerk, to be honest, like I'm being too petty. I meant child support. Not the jerk. Sounds like your ex has burned a bunch of bridges and is trying to make you her lifeline because you share a kid. The whole situation is unfortunate, but it isn't your responsibility to help her. You're right about her being able to use the money you pay for child support to pay for care for her other kids. But even without that, it would still not be your responsibility. You sound like a caring person and she knows how to make you feel guilty, but it's not wrong for you to refuse to help. Why should you feel like a jerk when you don't want to take care of 5 kids, aged 0 to 13, instead of just 1? That's a big responsibility. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your ex is. Cheated with her ex gets sick and wants you to take care of her kids with ex? That is completely disrespectful to you. Take care of your kid. In fact, get full custody and tell her to buzz off. Am I the jerk for threatening to kick out my niece after she hacked my daughter's Roblox account? I'm 38 female. My daughter, who's 13, has been playing this game called Roblox since lockdown first started as a way of playing with her friends virtually as well as curing her boredom. She was obsessed with this Roblox game that's set in a school because she missed her friends so much and it allowed her to stay connected with them. Her interest in video games has developed into an interest into technology. She's by far at the top of her IT class and has even started learning how to code in order to make her own game. My sister, who's 34, and my niece, who's 10, have recently had to move in with us after my sister discovered that her husband was having an affair. They're staying at my house for the time being while she saves up money for a place of their own. My niece and daughter usually get along fine, and they both bond over their interest in Roblox. But last week, my daughter was completely distraught and she wouldn't stop crying. She said that she saw her cousin playing on a Roblox game and realized her cousin's avatar had a lot more items than usual. She decided to join her only to realize that her account had been hacked and she had lost nearly every item she had on her favorite Roblox game. She had lost 800,000 worth of in-game currency and nearly her entire inventory, which she claimed was worth over 5 million of the in-game currency. She had spent the last 4 years saving up for those items and everything was gone just like that. My daughter began accusing my niece of hacking her account. My niece denied it at first, but quickly broke under pressure and admitted to everything. The previous day, they had been playing the game together when I called them down to dinner. My niece has only been playing for a few months, and I suppose that she would be considered a noob. She begged my daughter to give her some of her items, and my daughter refused, saying that she should earn the items herself. When my daughter came downstairs, my niece decided to stay behind for a minute to transfer all of my daughter's items into her account. I tried to mediate the situation, but my sister is refusing to cooperate. She told me that it's just a game. It's not like my daughter spent real money on it. I attempted to explain just how much this game means to my daughter, to which my sister said that my daughter should count herself lucky that her biggest problem is a bunch of pixels on a screen. She said my daughter was a teenager now and was too old to be acting this immature over a game. My niece refuses to give my niece her stuff back and says it's unfair that my daughter gets to have everything she wants, both in real life and online. I told my sister and niece that both of them were acting like ungrateful brats, considering how I was letting them stay at my house rent-free. Today I gave her an ultimatum. If my niece doesn't return everything she hacked from my daughter's account, they would both have 1 week to leave. I told her that I refuse to let anyone disrespect my daughter under my roof. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm getting so tired of people telling other people that they are too old to love the things they love. Let people enjoy the things they want to and enjoy life. It doesn't matter if your daughter is too old for the game or if she didn't spend any real money on the items. What matters is that your niece stole from your daughter and your sister wants to give her no repercussions for this action. How much longer until your niece decides that it's not fair that your daughter has something else that she doesn't have and takes it from you? Or that you have something that she doesn't and takes that? Theft is theft, and if your sister doesn't put a stop to this now, it can start a slippery slope, especially since your niece has seen that she has her mother's approval. Yes, your niece has been given a raw deal, but that's no excuse to steal, especially from someone who not only had nothing to do with why she has this situation, but who was sharing her home to try to help her out. Both your niece and your sister have taken advantage of your hospitality and broken your trust. Not the jerk. When I was your niece's age, I had a friend come over who was upset at my brother for something and deleted his game off of Ocarina of Time. She wasn't allowed over again. Stealing is stealing, even when one person says the value is 0. I organized a student protest against a teacher. This happened decades ago, back in primary school. I only remembered it because I was recently catching up with some old friends from back then, and we got to laughing over old stories, and then someone mentioned, the wildest was when you organized that whole protest against our teacher. The consensus was I did, indeed, organize the entire class to rebel against our teacher that resulted in her being deposed and our class getting a substitute for the rest of the year. I almost fell out of my chair hearing this story from their mouths. It wasn't that I didn't remember it, of course I did. That year was awful. It was just that it existed very differently in my memory. 2 important pieces of background knowledge to understand here. 1. I went to a very small, very rural school. How small? Each classroom was composed of the entire year level, and the largest had at most 30 kids in them. My class level was on the smallest in the entire school, with only 14 kids altogether. While we still had our cliques and factions, our small size caused our class to be very tight-knit and protective of each other. How rural? The school building itself was incredibly small, but one thing we were not short on was gigantic empty fields surrounding us on all sides. Great for sports, and great for student protests. 2. I was, at the time, undiagnosed autistic, and now I'm formally diagnosed. But back then, I was just seen as being a very quirky kid. One of the ways this quirkiness manifested was that I really had trouble adapting to the rules and structures of grade school and how it differed from what I was used to. At home, if I wanted to go to the bathroom, I just went. Now I have to put my hands up? Now I have to ask permission to go to the bathroom? So then I went and put my hand up to ask my mom for permission to go to the bathroom, and she told me I didn't have to. Madness, chaos. I don't care what the rules are. Please just be consistent. But one of the main parts of my brain and the way it works is that sometimes my brain, separate from my will, would just make a decision about a course of action, and I would very calmly commit to it no matter what. Like it's vitally important that I stay true to this course of action. I can't explain it. It's like I set a rule for myself, and if something disrupts that, I just shut down and stop functioning. So when the school said, okay, when this bell rings during recess or lunch, that means you have to leave the playground and go back to class, I was a confused kid already struggling with these completely nonsense limitations and guidelines imposed on me. So when that bell rang, I got that calm little voice in my head that said, "No, I'm good out here actually. I don't think I'll go back into class." So I would just continue to sit on the playground, playing with my plastic spider toys or sitting on the swing. Teachers would realize what was going on and come out to get me and tell me that I have to go back to class, but I would just very calmly hear them out and then smile at them and politely as possible tell them, "No thank you, I want to stay out here." They really didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't getting upset, I wasn't throwing a tantrum, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't being rude in any way. I was incredibly docile and would let them explain things to me with endless patience and then just politely refuse them and go back to whatever I was doing. Like this was just a very normal and reasonable negotiation between two equal parties. I have memories of sitting on the swing while 3 very confused and flustered adult staff huddled around me trying to bribe me with candy to go back to class. It would take a whole lesson block to lure me back to the classroom, and then at lunch the whole thing would start over again. It took me 3 years at school to finally accept the status quo thanks to a teacher that I had. I was never happy about it though. I eventually settled into school life, excelled at subjects I liked, at least passed the subjects I didn't, followed the rules, was seen as intelligent and obedient, and was often liked by my teachers, until my final year, when we got the teacher I can only rudely moniker Mrs. Big Mouth. Mrs. Big Mouth should not have been a teacher. She had a triggered temper and would explode into long, crazy tirades against us if we did anything she felt was disrespectful. What did she consider disrespectful? Darned if I know. It changed day by day depending on her mood. You could disrespect her to her face one day and she'd laugh and say you have such razor wit, and politely ask a question the next day and she'd scream at you for 10 nonstop minutes, then give you a week of detention for talking back. The absolute peak moment of her boiling temper came when she threw a dictionary at a student who was whispering to me in class. When I tell you that it missed her by half an inch, I mean it. But believe it or not, this wasn't what made her such an awful teacher. It was so hard to get teachers at rural schools back then. There was almost nothing you could do to get fired, so we had experience with teachers with nightmare tempers. What made her such an issue was her big mouth. She used us, her trapped audience, as free therapy. She would info dump, trauma dump about her very personal, very private life to us, all day. She'd be 2 words into a spelling list and launch into an extended story session about her marital issues with her husband. We'd be working on fractions, and unprompted, she'd declare to the class that her adult daughter no longer talks to her, and then diatribe to us about it until the bell rang. She had money issues, a contentious relationship with her parents, her marriage was on the rocks. She once pulled me aside after school and spoke with me, at length, about how she was thinking of having another baby to try to repair her marriage. I was like, "Okay, lady, I'm 11, about to miss my bus, and my house is a 4-hour walk on foot from here." We weren't learning. We hadn't had a complete lesson since the first week of the school year. We were behind on the curriculum and frustrated. One kid had brought a stopwatch into school and would time lessons versus her monologues and kept detailed lists, and we would come to school each morning and do betting pools on them. What subjects would she interrupt? What would she talk about? And how long would it go on? But all that still wasn't the breaking point, if you can believe it or not. The problem was it wasn't just her own private life she couldn't keep her mouth shut about. It was everyone else's. Because parents would make the reasonable assumption that she should be told things as our class teacher that would be important to know, and that she would understand that these things were said in confidence. Instead, she would veer randomly off in the middle of talking to us about her horrible weekend to let us know whatever kind of private things were going on in a classmate's life that she had been made aware of. That was awful. That was what made that year horrible. It wasn't even about when my secrets were shared with the entire class. It was about watching the faces of my lovely, supportive classmates as they held back tears as things they never wanted to share with anyone were announced like morning news. We couldn't stand her. Then one day that voice came along, the one I hadn't heard in years. The bell rang to go back into class, and that voice said, "But I don't want to be in that classroom. I'm not even being taught there." So I just didn't go back to class. I just sat on the playground in a daze eating grass. Don't eat grass, it's not good for your teeth. Despite how small my class was, I don't think Mrs. Big Mouth even noticed I wasn't there. Others did though. Come lunch and everyone came out. My friends asked me where I was and I said, "Oh, I didn't go back to class." "Well, why didn't you?" "Why would I?" Light bulb moment for my classmates. Yeah, why would they go back to class either? What was the point? From a practical standpoint, they weren't learning. From an emotional standpoint, it was horrible to be there. A friend who had her family's dirty laundry aired to the entire class just last week, things even she didn't know her parents were going through, asked if she could sit with me rather than go back to class. I just stared at her, vacant and confused. Sure, I'm just eating grass. Over the next few days, 2 kids turned into 4. 4 turned into 10. Then it turned into the entire class. The whole class was doing a sit-out protest on the field rather than going back to class. Of course, Mrs. Big Mouth tried to do something about it. She had come out, screaming at us and threatening us with detention and internal suspension. But 6 months of her crap had turned us all against her. I'd become the de facto leader and spokesperson of the protest by merit of being the first to sit out, and also because I was well known to not give a hoot. I gave her the exact same treatment from back in grade 1. I would let her scream, let her holler, let her threaten, and then I would give her a sweet and innocent smile and nod in acknowledgement and say, "No thank you, we're going to remain out here." And 13 pairs of eyes would stare at her in total silence. No one, not even the most gobber-mouthed jerk in the class, would volunteer a word. The unspoken agreement was all negotiations were my responsibility. The thing about angry people is that they feed off conflict. They get you angry so that they can respond with even more anger, and it nourishes them. She had no plan of action on how to deal with me patiently hearing her out, then refuting her in the gentlest of terms. Another thing that ended up helping down the line is that we made an attempt to conduct our own classes. They sucked, and we didn't learn much because we were kids with no supervision, but it was really cute in retrospect. We'd have groups of people assigned to subjects, with some people bringing in words they found in a dictionary for spelling lists, and others bringing in old 6th grade homework from older siblings. The heart was there, and it served a purpose, if not educational. Okay, but how did no one else notice this was happening? Surely people would notice 14 kids sitting on the lawn, not in class. Rural school, big, empty fields, even screaming at us. The most other classrooms would hear would be muffled voices, and everyone was used to hearing her yelling or taking us out onto the field abruptly to make us do laps as group punishment. Plus, the way the school buildings were arranged was that it was actually all in one straight line of adjacent rooms, and ours happened to be at the very end of the building. No windows faced the field we all sat in, except that of our own classroom. It was just a very lucky arrangement of coincidences and preconceived notions, at least for a couple of weeks. I couldn't tell you the exact number. This was so long ago, and as a kid, I definitely had a more stretched idea of time. Minutes felt like hours, especially during that year. But there was definitely at least 2 weekends that got passed by since the sit-out protest started. Eventually, someone caught on to what was happening, or maybe Mrs. Big Mouth humbled herself and finally confessed to her boss that she had lost control of a bunch of 11-year-olds. So we were called into the principal's office to sort this out. As the representative of our class, I was of course chosen to attend the meeting. Since I understood I was probably going to be yelled at for doing nothing wrong, I felt the easiest way to mitigate things was to explain in a very rational and logical way the series of events that led up to our bad behavior. As well, for my entire life, my mother had always taught me that it was no good complaining about things unless you were also willing to think of solutions. So I interviewed my class one by one to hear each individual story of why they didn't feel comfortable going to class anymore. Itemized them under categories for easier discussion because my little quirky brain loved itemizing things. So we got the rest of the week off school. That weekend, every parent of every student came to a meeting between them, Mrs. Big Mouth, and the principal. Stories were swapped. My exercise book with my tidy little lists and records of our betting pool and monologue times were confiscated and brought into the meeting. I don't know what went down, but when my mother came home, she just told me that Mrs. Big Mouth would not be our problem for the rest of the school year, and more importantly, that she was incredibly proud of me and that I did the right thing. Rarely in my childhood had my inability to integrate into normal society led to me doing the right thing, so I just remember crying and hugging her and feeling vindicated about, I don't know, just existing or something. So yeah, from the outside perspective, this was what it looked like. I kind of learned to parse the difference between when it's appropriate to go along with set societal rules, even if I don't understand them. And years later, I did lead an actual, very small strike at work, but intentionally that time. My mother was proud of me then too. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife's fiancé the truth about our divorce? I'm 33 male. My ex-wife, who's 30, and I got divorced 3 years ago. In college, we worked at the same restaurant. That's where we met. We were together for 7 years and married for a little over 3.5. We divorced because she cheated twice. 2 years into our marriage, I discovered she was having an affair with a former classmate. I collect enough evidence and confront her. She confessed everything. The affair was about 2 months long. This was a really terrible time and was really hard to work through it with her. You can call me an idiot, but I'm a forgiving person. I do believe in second chances and that people can change. We agreed to reconcile. We did the work, we had marriage counseling, we read some of the books. She went no contact with her classmate right away, open phone policy, we told our parents. She was doing the right things and our relationship was recovering. 1 year into our reconciliation, her aunt passed. I'm very busy with work and can't attend the services as they're on Thursday and Friday back in her hometown, 5 hours away. Her parents and brother no longer live there, so she stayed with a good friend from high school. I had met this friend a few times and I was comfortable with that. On Saturday morning, my wife texted me that the car was loaded and she was about to start making the drive home. About an hour after that, I got a Facebook message from the friend who stated she wouldn't be able to go on with herself if she just let this go, but informed me that my wife had gone out Friday night with some old friends from high school. The friend thought nothing of this until she discovered my wife had left her phone behind and that she didn't come back until the following morning. I'd gotten a text that Friday night from my wife that she was going to bed early since the past few days had been emotionally draining. I confronted my wife soon as she got home. She was really hesitant to tell me anything, so I lied to her and told her if we were going to work through this, I needed to know everything like the last time. That got her to confess that she had gone out and had gone home with an old friend from high school. She said they didn't actually hook up, but they did do other things that I won't go into detail here. It didn't matter. Once I got enough of the truth, I left for my parents' house. That week, my dad called my landlord and paid all the termination fees and got me out of the lease. We went and got my stuff while she was at work. My parents set me up with a friend of theirs that was a divorce attorney and he cut me a deal. It took about 7 months for divorce to go final. That was 3 years ago. I have an awesome girlfriend now and I'm doing well. This past weekend, I got a Facebook message from a guy who is now engaged to my ex-wife. He introduced himself and said he was probably just being crazy, but he wanted to know why we had gotten divorced. He said he had broached the subject a few times and she always gets weird. She had told him that we had divorced because we grew apart, but mostly she just deflects or is really vague. I told him the truth and offered evidence if he would like. He declined and thanked me for my time and story. A day later, I get a phone call from a local but unknown number. I answer and it's my ex-wife. She's really upset and asking me why I'm trying to ruin her future. I get her to calm down and talk. She says her fiance has asked for some space and is staying with his parents this week, that he's saying he needs to reevaluate their relationship. She wants to know why I told him all about her past and why I'm still punishing her. She tells me she's not that person anymore and has done all this work and been in therapy, that she deserves another chance and I'm being petty and hateful. There were a few general insults thrown in too. I got upset and told her that if she really changed for the better, she would have been upfront with him about our past and owned up to cheating in her prior marriage, and then gone about showing her fiance that she was ready to be a worthy partner to him, unlike she was with me. Instead, she tried to lie and hide the truth, and now it's blowing up in her face again. She said a few choice words, then hung up. I haven't heard anything since. I told my girlfriend, and she reassured how I handled it, but I find myself feeling guilty. I still believe in second chances and that people can change. While I would have felt wrong lying to the guy, I wonder if I should have handled the whole thing differently or just not responded. If she's truly different and this is just a blip, I don't want to be the one that prevents her from finding happiness, but also believe I'm not what's hurting her engagement. Am I the jerk? Her fiance called you and asked you what happened. You are under no obligation to lie to him for her sake. As a matter of fact, anything that you told him besides the truth would be suspect, as you have no idea what she told him. Don't feel bad. She's only feeling the consequences of her actions, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Imagine if you had lied to the guy and said you had just grown apart. Would you want that on your conscience? I would have told him too, rather than been part of a lie that will lead to someone else getting hurt. She hasn't changed at all. Not the jerk. I'm like you. I would feel guilty because at a glance it seems like being honest about your experience caused your ex to potentially lose her relationship. However, you're holding yourself accountable for someone else's actions. Your ex cheated. Your ex withheld information from her current partner. Your ex is still avoiding accountability. You are not responsible for her actions. Anything that happens in her relationship is her problem, not yours. Update. Last night, I received a very long text from my ex-wife. I'll summarize it below. She started off by apologizing for the way she talked to me the other day and said I didn't deserve to be insulted like that. She then went on to explain herself and her situation. She started by acknowledging that this whole situation wasn't my concern or business and apologized for me being drawn into it and said she was embarrassed that their issues were being aired out. She said it was her fault this happened. Since she began dating her fiancé, she has hidden the details of our marriage out of shame and guilt. For the most part, it was never brought up until he proposed a couple months ago. That's when he first really asked and seemed to want to know. She said she wasn't ready to deal with that and kept trying to rug sweep it, but he persisted. That is when she started therapy. She never thought he would reach out to me though. She then stated that none of this was my fault and apologized for blaming me. She said she should have faced this a long time ago, gotten therapy for ruining our marriage, and come to terms with her own feelings of guilt. Then she apologized for her affairs and the way I was treated during our marriage. The last part was just her stating that she was not expecting a response back, wishing me the best, and saying that hopefully her and her fiancé will never bother me again. This morning when I got up and read this, I sent back a brief message. I appreciate the apologies and I'm glad you're working on yourself. I've moved on from what happened and hope you can move on from this. The only bit of advice I have is I think this text needs to go to your fiancé. She responded back just by saying thank you and that he received far more and far longer texts. I doubt there will ever be another update. I actually hope there isn't. I don't believe in closure, but I will say it was refreshing to hear her apologize without an asterisk. That's what I always got before, the "I'm so sorry, I just drank too much," and "I'm so sorry, I was just really depressed and stressed," and doesn't mean a whole lot really. Maybe just unexpected for me, but it was nice to hear an apology that has no excuse trailing behind it. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day now and leave all this behind me. Wanted to address a small set of commenters from the first post though. I had several people hung up on the fact that my dad paid my termination fee and got me out of my lease. He did that of his own accord to take a lot of the stress of the separation off me. I included that to show I had a support system that was behind me and willing to help in any way, no questions asked. It really helped me through the healing process and I got back on my feet pretty quickly. I'm sorry if you don't have anyone there for you when you're at your lowest, but it doesn't make you better or manlier or whatever you were going for when you made those comments. Having to face any and every challenge on your own is really just kind of a sad existence in my opinion. I hope that changes for you and that you'll find someone to be in your corner someday. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for birthday presents for my son that he can only use at my ex-wife's place? I'm 52, male, recently separated from my ex who's 49 of 18 years. We share custody, week on, week off with our 2 kids, my daughter who's 13 and son who's soon to be 15. The relationship ended mostly amicably. No one cheated on each other, as far as I know. We just drifted apart, friend-zoned. When we split, we agreed that I would stay in our old 4-bedroom family home for a few more years while our kids were still at high school. We lived right next door to my son's high school. I would continue to pay down our mortgage on my own and also pay for any additional renovations on my own that we still had left to complete since buying the place 4 years ago. When the time comes to sell, she will get her 50%. She agreed to move out into her own 3-bedroom rental out by the beach. I'm paying her child support as she only earns about 1/3 of what I do in her part-time, 30-hour-a-week job. The rest of her income comes from government social support. We have a joint bank account where we both put money in to cover the kids' general needs. This week is my son's 15th birthday. He's big into gaming, basketball, and fishing. When he moves between our 2 places, he brings his Xbox with him. I've paid for 2 computer monitors, one at each property, just so he can do this easily and be happy. He has a homemade basketball hoop that he helped me build and paint for him when he was a young 10-year-old lad, mounted on the outside of my house for him to practice whenever he stays with me. My ex emailed me to ask what I think we should get him for his birthday, aka share costs for. She listed 2 things. Firstly, a freestanding basketball hoop and a gaming chair, all up around $1,000 total. Both to be used only at her place for his enjoyment there. I've refused to help her buy these particular options. I'd prefer it if we spent our money on something that he'll enjoy getting the benefits from wherever he may be, like new clothes, a new device, a new bike, fishing gear, etc., or a shared family experience with both of us present. I thought that was reasonable. My ex-wife thinks I'm being a jerk with this stance for not agreeing to pay anything for these particular presents to help furnish her house or his bedroom there. She's suggesting that it's not fair that he can play basketball at my place and not hers, or that he feels more comfortable playing video games at my place and not hers. Now she's accusing me of starting to play some petty game with her by not fairly contributing enough towards my son's happiness on his birthday. My fear is that I am indeed being unnecessarily picky with this battle, being too selfish, and denying her the right to be able to make her home as happy or as comfortable as mine for my son to live in. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. First off, he's 15. You don't need we presents. Secondly, it's convenient that she wants you to pay for something he already has at your house to be installed at her home, and a second gift for her space. You're the jerk, because you're not thinking of it in terms of what would make your son happy. He likes to play basketball. If he can only play basketball at your house, that's a whole week at a time where he can't enjoy a physical activity when he's at his mom's. Expensive gaming chairs are ridiculous purchases. You can play a video game sitting pretty much anywhere. And if you're sitting there so long that your body starts to ache, it's time to put down the controller and do something else anyway, like play basketball. In my opinion, you should get the hoop, but not the chair. Look at it like a compromise. Agreed. With his logic, why would anyone buy anyone a gift if you don't see the recipient enjoying it in your own house? It's weird to have strings attached on a gift. It's kind of sad that the dad isn't prioritizing the idea that it's nice to have his kid feel comfortable under both roofs, and not like he's prevented from doing his hobbies in one of their houses. Maybe a good compromise would be for the dad to get the new chair for his house and the old one can be brought to the mom's house. Why doesn't the mom prioritize making her kid feel better in her home? That's her responsibility now. OP is doing it at his house, which is technically still half hers. She should be able to do it at her house. Seems like she's trying, but she doesn't make as much money as OP. It did say that her email stated that these gifts would be shared expenses, so she's not relying on him to pay all of it, just part of it. The lady makes $30,000 a year. She wants to get her teenage son a birthday gift worth $1,000. The chances of this being split equally are non-existent. And frankly, while a split gift that makes the kid's life better at both homes is a nice idea, I think OP needs to get on board with that. $1,000 is an absurd amount. And if that was OP's objection, that would be fine. But he's not objecting to the cost. He's objecting to the idea of his son using his gift at his mom's house, which is just being petty. Focus on making your kid happy. If this is what he wants, then get him that. Karen is furious that I only tipped her $200. Got my arm tattoo done recently. Was a little more expensive than I would have liked, but the artist is really good. It took her 20 hours. I did the math, and she made $200 an hour. My arm is mostly black, so no other colors were used. It looks really good. I left a $200 tip. I thought that was fine. But my cousin, who recommended her, said that was a terrible tip, and that the artist told her she was really upset about how cheap my tip was. Again, she made $200 an hour, which is a pretty good amount of money to me. She also is an independent artist, and it's just her who does them. Did I stiff her? I'm new to tattoo etiquette. Not the jerk. Tip what you want. You paid her an agreed upon amount and then gave her an hour's more worth of money. My daughter is a tattoo artist and owns her own studio. As she says, tips are great, but her salary, cost of materials, rent, the whole 9 yards, is worked into the agreed upon price. $4,000 is an incredible amount of work and a huge amount for the average customer to pay. If your cousin feels so bad for her making $200 an hour, tell your cousin to pay the tip. It's awfully nice of you to tip at all. The artist is self-employed. You had a contract with an agreed upon rate. I don't see why you had to tip at all. Imagine a self-employed carpenter fixes you a new kitchen, one-man job, done in a day or two. Would you tip? Am I the jerk for telling my husband Happy Father's Day today because it felt like I was doing it all alone? This morning I woke up early to order myself coffee so he could take our son to pick it up and surprise me. Then they went to the grocery store and thoughtfully picked out my favorite breakfast and came home. My husband made half of the breakfast and then asked me to make the other half. No problem. He acknowledged that he was asking me to do the work and still taking credit for the benefit of our kids' experience and memories. It was no problem until he went upstairs to go to the bathroom. And after 45 minutes, I walked upstairs to check on him and he was asleep in our bed. He slept the entire afternoon. Later that day, I was doing the absolute mountain of dishes, my third load for the day. That's another story. And he asked me to make a grocery list. I asked if he could please make the list because I'm in the middle of doing the dishes and further tried to coax him by using Mother's Day in a playful way. I didn't really want to drop what I was doing to look in the fridge he was already standing right in front of to tell him what we needed for dinner. He knows what the ingredients are. He could easily look himself, but he insisted I help him. I was super frustrated, so I took a deep breath, washed and dried my hands, and then opened the fridge and started telling him what we need. He could sense my frustration and called me out on it. I explained that I was really hoping he could make a list himself just this once because I was in the middle of doing the dishes. I explained that when I make a grocery list, I just look at what we have and write down what we don't have, and I didn't understand why he needed my help. He started talking over me to say if I had a problem making a grocery list with him, I should have just told him. I told him that I did communicate that with him. He doubled down and told me that I need to learn some patience. I smiled and said, "Happy Father's Day," because it was the nicest thing I could think to say. That completely set him off. He went off on me, refused to get ingredients to make our dinner, bought dinner for only himself and our kids, and has been giving me the silent treatment for over an hour. He says I went too far. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for all the feedback. I've been enjoying my self-brewed coffee this morning and taking in all your responses. I have a lot to look over and think about. I know divorce is the obvious answer. People who have commented are correct in saying that this incident is just representative of every other day, but magnified by the fact that Mother's Day was a particularly crappy day to choose to be particularly crappy. I feel like maybe I was the jerk for making the petty comment. I am ND, and sometimes I have trouble picking up on if I did something wrong that I maybe didn't realize was wrong to say or do. I appreciate all of the anecdotes of your strength and ability to move forward after leaving an exhausting marriage. It is inspiring. Update. Since Sunday, I have not lifted a single finger for baby Sinclair, my internal nickname for him. Unless it directly impacts our kids, every time he requests my help or me to do something for him that he can do for himself, I just use my absolute sweetest voice, let him know he doesn't need my help, and I believe in his ability to complete the task himself. Then I smile and walk away. The third time I did this, he said I was making him uneasy. I could not help but laugh, which made him announce that he felt more uneasy. I know it wasn't kind, but I calmly told him that he is a pathetic human. I told him I'm sorry it has to be me, but someone in his life needs to tell him to grow up. I told him I care about him and I love him, but I will not tolerate being treated with disrespect even one more day. He said that I'm mistreating him. The audacity. I spared the divorce conversation for safety and because I have said it many times before that I want to leave and financially it's not possible right now. Update. I began to gray rock to throw off his cycle of attempting to rope me back into the argument from the other day. I have calmly listened to him gush over his love for our family and how much he loves and appreciates me and thinks I'm an amazing mom. He says he loves me, but all I hear in my head is his voice screaming that I'm a jerk. It all sounds so obviously disingenuous. I told him that his words mean literally nothing while his behavior is the same. It's like saying waffles have legs. It sounds unbelievable, and if I don't see it with my own eyes, I'm not believing it. I told him regardless of if in the end we stay together or not, we need to go back to therapy as a duo and separately. I told him he needs to take steps today to move forward with therapy and treating his mental health appropriately. He agreed, but no evidence of walking waffles yet. I'm surprised at my ability to completely refuse to do anything he can do himself. I'm more surprised that he's actually doing the tasks himself. I've tried this before, and he ultimately bullies me into doing the task. Not this time. He keeps complaining about his results in ways that are so juvenile and manipulative, always leaving the impression that if I had just done it for him, it would have been done correctly. I just smile and tell him he did a good job with the task, and tell him that it sounds like he needs more practice, and eventually it will become second nature. I'm feeling his attempts to make me miserable, but it's rolling right off of me, at least for now. For those of you who have asked why I'm talking to the internet with this in the first place, I've been isolated from my circle for so long, my relationships no longer exist. I have limited family, period, and no family nearby. My mom has passed. My dad sucks. My siblings mostly suck. I have no friends. I work virtually and don't have friendships with my coworkers because we rarely socialize and have opportunities to bond. I don't have opportunities to interact with adults very often. Isn't that the beauty of the internet? Despite my logical brain, years of gaslighting along with my neurodivergence have made it sometimes feel impossible to trust my own judgment. Not the jerk, and he's a clown. For Father's Day, wake up and treat yourself, and then leave him with the kids and responsibility. Tell him you wanted his gift to mirror the one you received for Mother's Day, and that you're willing to make dinner for the kids. just like he did for you. Am I the jerk for telling my sister her Brady Bunch dream isn't helping her kids or her future stepkids? My sister was widowed 4 years ago, her fiancé 5 years ago. They've been together for 2 years and living together for 8 months, and their wedding is in July. They have kids from their late spouses. My sister's 2 are 9 and 7. Her fiancé's 3 are 10, 8, and 7. My sister and her fiancé have talked a lot about being the perfect blended family, and they already sought out advice on doing a step-parent adoption of each other's kids and asking about changing the last names of the kids so they all have the hyphenated family name. They're doing this when both admit freely the kids do not get along. The step-parents in the houses are disrespected by their stepkids on a daily basis. The relationship between biological parent and kid has become contentious. Just the other week, we were at my nephew's, brother's kid's, 6th birthday party, and it became a free-for-all with all the kids yelling at each other and them yelling at the adults, sister and her fiancé. They were so loud, a couple of neighbors checked to see if things were okay. It escalated until my nephew, who's 9, told his mom that he hated her and he hoped that she'd have the worst wedding ever. My sister's 8-year-old future stepdaughter told her dad that she wished it had been him who had passed instead of her mom. These were 2 very standout things said among many other anger-filled, hurtful things. My sister and her fiancé decided to bring up the adoption and name changes to the kids the very next night. Oh, that sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Which went disastrously bad. My niece, who's 7, called her paternal aunt, and the aunt went off on my sister for daring to try and erase her brother from the kids' names and birth certificates, and she told my sister that her late husband would be so disgusted by her and would never forgive her in a million years for this. She told her she hoped she had a miserable life with her new husband and looked forward to losing her kids in 10 years' time. My sister told me about this afterwards, and she was upset. She was talking about the dream she had and how nothing was working the way she wanted it to. I told her that the Brady Bunch dream, and she mentioned the show before it was an ideal, wasn't helping her kids or her future stepkids. She said she just wanted all 5 kids to have 2 parents. I told her they already have that. They just each lost a parent, but they still have 2 technically, and that didn't change. I said adding a 3rd will be dependent on each kid, and right now they aren't earning that by ignoring the kids' thoughts and feelings. She told me I didn't understand and wasn't being supportive. I told her she came to me and I listened, and how she always told me to be honest with her, and this was no different. She said I was being a jerk to her and should have just been happy for her, and I really sucked. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You did what you could. There are actual steps that sister and fiancé could take that might actually help their kids get to know one another and get along. It would also help with the transition after a hard time. She's just upset that things are not working the way she and her fiancé are choosing to do things. Not at all. The Brady Bunch was a fiction. It's a 54-year-old sitcom, not a guidebook for blended families. Family relationships can't be forced. It sounds like everyone involved could use therapy, and this wedding should be postponed. I, 29 female, made my stepfather, who's 50, an outsider at my wedding that he paid for. I need to make it up to him. I ruined the memory of the best day of my life because I was too blind to see what I was doing was hurting one of the most important people in my life. I got married 2 months ago to the love of my life, and he finally opened my eyes to what I did. He showed me the perspective that I didn't understand. When I was 5, my father just left, just disappeared without trace. He and my mom were already separated by that point, but he was still living with us. 3 years later, my mom started dating Rob. Rob was quite a bit younger than she was. I believe she was 34 and he was 26. Today, he is very wealthy. He wasn't when he met my mom, and he treats my mother like a queen. Whenever she's around him, she looks like the happiest person in the world. My younger sister looks a lot like me and mom, but her personality is for sure a reflection of her dad, always telling jokes and being just a nice person all around, while me and my mom are more serious and cold. As I got older, Rob became more present in my life. He got married to my mom and she got pregnant, but it was still pretty weird seeing him as a father figure, mostly because people would assume he was my brother all the time. When I was in high school, I was dating this boy, and he broke up with me at my friend's house. My mom was on a night shift, and I had to ask Rob to pick me up. When he did, he comforted me, took me to go get ice cream, and when we got home, he told me something like this, without knowing what had happened. Whoever made you sad doesn't understand that you are the best girl in the world, and it's their loss. Don't beat yourself up because other people are too stupid to see that. I just said to him, I wish you were my dad. He smiled and said that he wished that too, and he could be if I wanted to. We left it at that. I never called him dad, but from that point forward, I saw him as a father, and I think he knows it. I finally reconnected with my biological father about a year ago. It happened because I got engaged. When I came to my mom's house one day, he was there, and I couldn't even recognize him. He was way thinner than he was when I was a kid. He struggled for years with depression and substances. My mom and Rob actually helped him get clean, and they even paid for his stay at a great rehabilitation center. They decided together that it was time for me to finally meet him again. I don't want to explore much on how this was, but all I have to say is that I'm glad to have him back in my life, and I'm glad for being able to help him heal. He suffered a lot. He got lost, but now he is at least trying. Rob and my mother paid for everything at my wedding, and everything was amazing. The church was beautiful. My husband looked amazing. The one mistake I made, I chose my biological father over Rob. I chose the man that abandoned me for over 20 years over the one that took me as his own and gave me everything he could when he didn't have to. I chose the man that broke my mother's heart over the one that saved her. I don't know why I did what I did. Looking back on it, I feel so stupid. My dad didn't deserve to walk me down the aisle. My dad didn't deserve to be in all the pictures with my mom and my husband's parents. It should have been Rob. I don't know. I think I was compensating for the lost time with my dad. Everything was still so fresh with him. I was helping him out. He talked to me every day. I felt like he deserved to be back in my life. When we decided who would give speeches, we had to cut some because it was just too many, and me and my husband didn't really like the idea of hearing speeches for an hour and a half, so we decided for 5 people each. When I gave the list to my husband, he even asked, "No Rob?" And I said, "Yeah, my mom is already doing one." The others I chose were 2 of my bridesmaids, my mom, my sister, she really pushed for it, and again, my dad. My husband said I should reconsider. He even thought of giving up one of his to put Rob in. I said it was fine, he didn't need to do that. My whole thinking when doing this was that Rob has my sister. He will have his moment. That was the only chance my dad had. But I went too far. I completely cut him out of the party basically. If you look at the photos, it doesn't even look like he went. My mom looks like she is faking a smile in half the pictures. I don't have a single picture with him. He only appears in group pictures and some with my husband. I only realized all of this when I texted Rob 2 days ago asking him about a gift I'm giving my husband for his birthday. He answered, then asked about my car that is with a mechanic friend of his. He answered. Then I asked him something about my insurance. He did not answer. A little over an hour later, my mom called me. She just said, "Do you have no shame? Do you not understand what you did?" I just listened, and she told me not to talk to Rob for now. I was just so confused. I got home and told my husband, and he just said that he knows what she's referencing, but he will talk to her first. Later, he showed me the wedding photos. He went step by step on everything I have listed here. We talked calmly, and he broke it down for me. By the end, I was crying so much that I had a headache. What an inconsiderate idiot I am. He told me that he and my mom didn't tell me anything before the party because Rob asked them not to. He understood that it was important for me for my father to be a big part of this day, and when they protested, he said that they should not make me worry about these small things. I don't know what changed from before the party until now. My mom only tells me that he needs a bit of time and that he will talk to me soon. My husband keeps telling me that I made a mistake, but Rob will be understanding and will forgive me, and I know that he will. He 100% has already forgiven me. He probably felt something when I was texting him that day that broke him down. I don't know what I said to trigger him at that moment, but also it doesn't really matter. I did the real damage at the party probably, since he appeared to be fine with everything else before it. It was not fine by any means. I have to make it up to him, I just don't know how. I guess I'm just writing this here because I'm a little lost. I'm too ashamed to talk about it with anyone else I know, apart from my mom and my husband. She doesn't tell me anything, and my husband keeps insisting that everything will be fine, and for me not to worry too much about it. And he's probably right, but I just feel like me not worrying about this is being inconsiderate to Rob again. I have to worry. I just don't know what to do. I'm now at work, and the only thing I can think about is this. Nothing else matters to me right now. If someone has any kind of idea how I can make this up to him, I would appreciate it. Edit. Literally 40 minutes after I uploaded this, my mom texted me saying that Rob wants to speak to me tonight. OP on the situation of her insurance and Rob. OP. Actually, Rob does not pay for my insurance. He only helped me set it up, and this is not about money at all. I make more than enough money, and my husband is also very well off. Rob and my mom paid for the wedding because they wanted to. They told me it would be their gift for me, and they gave me the money to use it on the wedding. My husband's family gave us a sum to help pay for our new house. But your comment made me realize that this might be the problem. He might think I'm using him for money. That just breaks my heart. I don't want his money. I would happily take myself out of my mom's will and his, if he has me in it, which he probably does, if it means I can fix this. Also, he was not rich at all when he met my mom. He became successful after their marriage, just to clarify. OP on why she didn't plan the wedding photos ahead of time. OP: my plan was that I wanted spontaneous pictures, and the photographer had to be changed last minute. In my head, it worked out fine. What I wanted was to have the important pictures taken early, bridesmaids, groomsmen, and family, and later on have just spontaneous pictures. It was something I was too stuck on, this notion of wasting time doing pictures, speeches, etc. But that was such dumb thinking. That's what weddings are for. At the end of the day, though, everything went great apart from this disastrous oversight of mine. You're almost 30, and you needed all of this pointed out to you? You made multiple conscious choices to exclude Rob for your wedding and only cared after you brought up an issue with your insurance, another thing he helped to pay for. At your age, you should know that choices have consequences. I'm not sure there's anything you can do to make up for the choices you made. Update: my sister is mostly just sad, not really mad at me. Just said she understood my situation, but is still really sad after seeing her father taken for granted like that. My mother is the person the most upset with me at the moment. She's the only one that still does not talk to me. I mean, she does, but not really. And for the people saying my husband and mother were idiots for not talking to me before, they agree and they have told me this. My husband specifically. I'm not trying to shift blame here, just saying this for the people that talked about it. I was not going to post anything else on here. Not a fan of being called names, and for people to keep saying that Rob should leave our family. Although I'm well aware that I deserve most of everything that was said about me. The comments about saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, in regards to me and my biological father, were the ones that hurt me the most, as it's a fear of mine and the reason I don't drink much and don't make the other bad choices that he made. But seeing how there are other things that could make us more similar than I realized is really frightening. The day I posted here, Mom told me that Rob wanted to speak to me at their house after work. I went and waited for Rob to arrive. When he did, my mom left us alone, and he started off by saying that he was hurt by what I did at the wedding, that he knows he is not my father, and that he would never try to force that on me, but that he at least thought he had some sort of importance in my life, and seeing me just not give him any importance apart from talking to him when I need help with something made him realize that I do not view him as he thought I did. At this point, I was already crying so much that I couldn't even talk. I waited for him to finish, and when he did, I just told him basically what you all said in the post, that I messed up bad, that I was inconsiderate, that he is one of the most important people in my life, and that what I did was unforgivable. The only reason I'm posting it here is because of something during the conversation. He said something about my time at college, and I went, but that was because, and I stopped. He asked me, what? Because of what? I just said, nothing, you're right, that was my fault, and I should have done better. He was pretty angry at this point, and he started to smile, and we talked about me taking responsibility for my actions. It's something I'm terrible at. It was an issue at my old job, and since then, I've been trying to do better at it, but not very successfully. He asked what changed, and I told him about the post. Multiple people in the comments said that I don't take responsibility, and yes, they read right through me. I showed it to him, and reading the post calmed him down. And no, he did not read the comments, just the ones I showed him. I would not let him see what some of you were saying about my mom. So yes, he told me if I was going to say something else, to thank you people for calling me out for not taking responsibility. We talked about a lot of other things not related to the wedding. In the end, I told him there were just 2 things I wanted to say for him to take away from this conversation. I really did mean it when I was in high school and said that I wished he was my dad. Even now, with my biological dad in my life, I still feel that way. And the second thing is that I know that it will be hard for him to believe it right now because of what happened, but I will try to prove it to him for as long as it takes. For those interested, I've been going to a therapist with my biological father once every 2 weeks since he came back, but I think I need one for myself, so I'll try to make it happen soon. Am I the jerk for being snarky with my mother-in-law after she made rude comments about my name? My husband and I are expecting a baby. We have not announced the name or the gender of our baby yet. This will be announced after our baby is here. After we are positive the name will be going on the birth certificate and when most people will hopefully know it's extra rude to make negative comments about names. We do expect negative thoughts. It feels like my in-laws, especially, have very weird ideas on names. The name Alexander is fine, but Alex or Alec are horrible. Jacob is a great name, but Joshua is awful. Ava is so sweet, but Ada is cruel to give to our kid. You get the idea. My husband's brother and his wife have a daughter called Lily, and the comments because they announced during the pregnancy were awful. The other element of all of this is my name. My name is unique and nature-related. Think ocean or lark. I love my name. I always have. I wear my name with pride as a 30-year-old woman. My mother-in-law can't stand my name. She has never said anything to me before now, but I heard her and father-in-law discuss my name, and mother-in-law made very rude comments about my parents for naming me what they did. When my husband and I announced my pregnancy, mother-in-law asked about names, and my husband told her that we weren't going to reveal the name until after the birth. She asked enough times about this that my husband has told her to stop, has shushed her, and we also walk away sometimes. She told me it was worrying how quiet we are being, and please tell her we're not going with something as truly awful as my name. She told me she doesn't know what my parents were thinking or how much they resented me when I was being born, but that she did not want that for her grandkid. She told me a normal name was needed. She told me she knows I wear my name with so much pride and it better not give me ideas to think it's okay to name her grandbaby that way. I told her not to worry. She wouldn't have to worry about what her grandkid's name is because we wouldn't dare make her put up with us anymore and we should say goodbye now. She was horrified and made it clear that wasn't what she meant. I smiled at her sweetly and said I couldn't possibly ruin her life anymore by making her interact with someone whose name offends her so much. And I told her not to worry because we'd make sure the name we chose goes on the birth certificate before anyone finds out. My husband heard the last point of what I said and laughed, and we left because forget that noise. Mother-in-law wasn't happy, and she told me I responded like a jerk, and now her worry is worse because she's so certain that this will be another lark or ocean type name. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Please name your baby something you both agree on, and make good on mother-in-law having zero access if you hear a peep about the name. She's being the jerk. Not the jerk. For the life of me, I can't understand full-grown adults that behave like this. Unless you think the kid is going to be named something like hashtag or pickle, there really isn't anything to get all worked up about. Ocean and Lark are both names that have been completely normalized now. Am I the jerk for throwing how much my husband makes in my brother's face after my brother insulted his career? I, 27 female, come from a family of white-collar people. My dad, who's 60, owns his own business, and my mom, who's 57, is a pediatric surgeon. My older brother, who's 30, is a lawyer and loves to boast about how much money he makes. He's always buying new watches and expensive suits. He also drives a Porsche and is engaged to who will be his third wife. I've always been more introverted than my brother, and I tend to fade into the background. I created and operate my own business and make a more than decent living. My husband is a master electrician, and he owns a very successful business. He makes more than 3 times what I do. We are a dink couple, double income, no kids. However, we keep our income very low-key and don't spend money like my brother does. My parents are aware of how much my husband makes because we paid for their 35th wedding anniversary getaway, and my dad saw the price tag. We were at Mother's Day on Sunday, and both my brother and I bought nice things for our mother as gifts. He bought her jewelry, and I got her a certificate for several hand massages at a spa near the hospital she works at. My mother thanked us, and my brother decided that it would be a great time to brag about how much the necklace cost, looking at my husband and joking about how he could never afford to buy a necklace like the one he got my mother. How my husband could never afford anything on an electrician's wage. He carried on like that until I had enough of him insulting my partner, who's worked harder than my brother to get to where he's at. I yelled at my brother to shut up and that my husband easily makes twice what he does and that he should sit down and be more respectful. Mother's Day is about mom, not you, were my exact words. After my brother left, soon after I snapped at him, I apologized to my mom and we went on to have a wonderful dinner where my mom told my husband embarrassing stories about me when I was little. My husband thanked me for standing up for him, and my mom told me she had a lovely night while we were on the phone yesterday and told me she used some of the money on their certificate to get her wrists and fingers massaged after a 10-hour surgery. She told me she was very happy with my gift. My brother's fiance sent me a tirade of texts blasting me for embarrassing him in front of our parents and calling me a jerk. I feel bad for causing drama, but happy that I stood up for my husband. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. And your brother is an idiot for not realizing how much a master electrician can make. Your brother definitely is the jerk for saying the things to your husband that he did. He deserved to be called out. He owes everyone, especially your husband and mother, an apology. Not the jerk. Your brother embarrassed himself, really. It really gets me that people who work in white-collar jobs cannot even fathom just how much a master electrician or a plumber can make, also with no student debt. Am I the jerk for being upset because my wealthy best friend wouldn't let me borrow $5? My best friend and I have been best friends for nearly 7 years. When we first met, she was struggling financially and lived paycheck to paycheck. At one point, her car broke down and she had no transportation to work, so I would let her borrow my car, and I never asked her for gas money or anything in return. At the time, I was financially secure and was happy to help her out. As the years went by, my financial situation changed, and just like her, I began living paycheck to paycheck. By this time, she had started dating a guy she met online who revealed to her a few months into dating that he was a millionaire. They married shortly after, and suffice to say, she has not had to struggle since. There have been a few times that I have asked to borrow money, which I've always paid her back. It's usually not much, less than $25 or so each time, and she would always oblige with no problems until recently. The last couple times I asked to borrow money, she said she didn't have it, which I found odd. But then I asked to borrow $5 and she said the same thing, and I thought it was odd that she told me she didn't even have $5 to spare. I know that ever since she got married, her brothers and a couple of other friends have tried taking advantage of her newfound wealth by asking to borrow money and then never paying her back for it, and that has cost her a lot of money. I started to think that maybe I had forgotten to pay her back money I owed her at some point, so I reached out to her to ask if that was the case. When she told me that wasn't the case, as in I had always paid her back, I told her I felt hurt because it felt like if I needed her help with something, I used the example if I ended up in jail, that I couldn't reach out to her for help because she couldn't even let me borrow $5. She said that just like her brothers, I needed to learn how to budget my money better and that she can't be the one to bail everyone out. She said that when she was struggling, she had to work multiple jobs and did what she had to do. I replied and said it wasn't fair for her to lump me in with her brothers as I've never done anything to take advantage of her, and I never would have said something like that to her when I let her borrow my car and any time she would ask me to borrow money when she was struggling. I told her I loved her, but that I was ending the conversation, and she replied that this is why money and friends should never mix. Since then, she's reached out and said, "I didn't deserve that conversation last night. I hope you know that." To which I have not replied to, and I have no plans to. I'm deeply hurt that she feels I was in the wrong, but I just don't think that I was the jerk here. I understand that I'm not entitled to anyone's money, borrowed or not, but when she was in my shoes, I did everything I could to help her out. I could understand if I had asked to borrow a large amount of money, but I literally asked for $5. Not the jerk. I'd leave her be. She's posh now and is not of your world anymore. People need you when they don't have it, but when you don't have it, all of a sudden, you're unreasonable and get questioned. I think it's a rich people thing. They tell you that financial literacy means never lending anyone money, which I don't think is bad advice in general, but applying that to $5 is insane. Studies have shown that even if people obtain wealth through hard work or luck, they become less empathetic. It happens even when people are playing Monopoly. They get meaner and more cutthroat. There was a Berkeley study about it. They showed a pedestrian on a street in the rain. Cheaper cars driving by would slow down to not splash the pedestrian, while the more expensive vehicles would speed up to splash them. And they rigged the Monopoly game in favor of one person. Despite knowing it was rigged, the winner player became more aggressive and cruel as the games went on, pretty much in all the people they used their study on. Money changes you. Not the jerk. It's not like you're asking her for a huge amount of money, and it's not like you didn't pay her back before. And if she's that loaded, this is nothing to her. I would 100% understand her boundary if you would take advantage of her in some way before, but you haven't. I honestly hope I never get rich enough to be this stingy with the people I love. At least if this is truly causing a problem in her relationship, she could tell you why. But I don't see how a millionaire husband would care about $5 or $20. Not the jerk. I think people aren't seeing the issue. Friendships are founded on equality. You supported her when she was down, and you feel that she's not supporting you when you're down, especially when it's a question about small sums. In addition to that, she starts lecturing you for being lazy and stupid. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Rule number 1 of having lots of money: never let people find out you have lots of money. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my brother-in-law a $50,000 truck? My brother-in-law, who's 28, has no job and lives in my in-laws' basement. He's obese and survives off of welfare checks from the Canadian government. He's capable of working, but chooses not to. My wife, on the other hand, who's 26, moved out at 18, self-funded a degree, works in a good field, $80K annually, got married, and has never sought a handout from her parents or her grandparents, even though they both have the means. We spent our vacation time the last 2 years visiting her grandparents who live across the country. Recently, her grandparents, who are 85, moved out of their house and into retirement living and no longer had space for both of their vehicles. Her grandpa decided to gift my brother-in-law a truck with a fair value of $50,000. His justification was to help him build confidence and give him something to care for. My wife was given nothing, and they did not do anything to even out the gift. We have a trip planned to visit them in a few months, but I have no interest in going to see them. I'm mad at myself for letting money ruin my perception of them, but I don't appreciate how my wife was treated. I feel that they take her for granted. We always go out of our way to visit them. All of our trips are self-funded. We've never asked anything of them, with lots of her cousins having been bailed out financially. I just have an icky feeling about the whole thing. My wife got upset when I told her I wanted to do something else with our vacation time. She got really upset and it led to an argument. She took the stance we have to enjoy our time with them while we have it. My wife and I are currently saving for our first house, paying off student loans, and saving for our first kid. We still drive my very first car I bought 10 years ago. The situation stings, as we could have used the help, while her brother lives a free ride and gets nothing but help all the time. Am I the jerk for not wanting to see my wife's grandparents because of this? Edit. My wife is extremely upset about her brother being given it as well, but is choosing to keep it to herself. She cried multiple times, and my sentiment of her family not appreciating her or taking her for granted comes from her speaking these feelings. Edit 2. My brother-in-law lives with my wife's parents, not her grandparents. He never sees the grandparents. 3. By not see them, I mean postpone the trip to a later date. We just saw them last week while they were here, and now the trip there is in less than 2 months. My intention is to let the situation cool a bit more for my wife and I. Edit 4. This is the second vehicle that's been given to him. The last one was given to him by his parents. My wife did not get one from her parents. Not the jerk. It's not your business who her grandparents give stuff to. That said, spending your vacation time and money to spend time with people that you resent and have emotionally hurt your wife is something I wouldn't want to do either. Not the jerk. It reads to me like your wife is very upset about the inequality but values her relationship with her grandparents more than her feelings about these gifts and inequities. My BFF had grandparents and parents who treated her brother very much like their golden child. It took her a very long time to come to terms with that. I understand your reluctance to seeing these people, but your wife is right and you should listen to her. They're old, 85, and have already lived far longer than the average lifespan for their generation. Help her where you can to accept that treatment and understand that it is not a reflection on her value. It's genuinely really sweet that you're so frustrated and angry by this on your wife's behalf. But yeah, I'd let it go. You don't know if they have plans to give her something else later on, but even if they don't, tell her that one possibility is that they can clearly see how capable and together she is, and that she doesn't need help from them. Sounds like they would have been better off gifting her brother an intervention of some kind instead of a valuable car. But whatever, grandparents gonna grandparent. Am I the jerk for setting up a just-in-case fund for my daughter? My daughter has been married to her husband for 3 years, and they recently had their first baby. The entire time they've been married, she's been a housewife, and now she's a stay-at-home mom with no plans to return to work. I think that's fine, and I've been supportive. I also know she and her husband both have sizable life insurance policies, so if anything happens to one of them, they'll be okay. However, she also signed a prenup, which again, I think is smart. But according to my daughter, she'd get a very small settlement. And even with child support, there's a good chance she'd have to return to work. And after being out of the workforce for a bit, who knows if that'll be a challenge. My main worry is my niece fell into this scenario, and even with child support, she struggled. So my husband, her father, and I set up a just-in-case account. If she and her husband divorce, she'll have money to fall back on just in case. If they remain married past the time my husband and I do, it'll just be added to whatever she'll inherit. I didn't intend on telling her about it unless it happened, but my husband pointed out that if she was ever in a situation where she wanted to leave but worried she financially couldn't, it would be good for her to know she has a plan B. So we told her, and she was a little surprised. She said she appreciated it, but felt we were rooting against her. I said we love her husband and hope they have a long, healthy marriage. We've always been supportive, but this is similar to the prenup. a just in case, a last resort. Well, she told her husband, and he's upset with us as well, saying that we don't trust him. I said it's looking out for our daughter and really is no different from the prenup. I added that just as he'll always want to protect his daughter, we'll always want to protect ours. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. In his own words, your son-in-law said he doesn't trust your daughter by having her sign a prenup. Does nobody see the double standard? I'm struggling every single day. My parents had something set aside for me if I were faced with this very scenario. I was. Only my ex found out and stole every last dime. We had to start over with literally nothing. Your daughter should be grateful. Yup, it's very interesting that son-in-law's response was to get angry when he heard about it. Very interesting that his response to his stay-at-home wife having access to money if he dumps her is to get angry and claim they don't trust him. Why is he upset that she'll have more than just the very small settlement if they divorce? How does this affect him? His money stays in his pocket, right? She isn't walking away with half of everything, so he's golden. The prenup obviously protects him, so why is he angry that she also has protection? And if they never divorce, what's the harm, right? Intriguing. The only mistake was telling her about it this early. The daughter should have only been informed about it if there were signs of trouble. Now that son-in-law knows about it, he's angry. OP should take care to ensure this son-in-law can't legally access this money. It would be horrible if he's the one to clean her out if it all falls apart. She needs to seek legal advice now that he knows about it. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. I love when you tell someone, I have some money just in case you ever need it, and they immediately get offended because your action threatens their marriage. I would ask them, if your marriage is so fragile that my money can influence it, then maybe you don't have anything at all. People see what they want to see, and such situations reveal perfectly what mindset they have, victim or not. Victims immediately will find something to be offended about, and you can't do anything about it. If someone has a good and strong marriage, there's no amount of people telling them that they are not going to last long that would influence them in any way. You're the jerk. I'd be pretty upset too. You're telling your daughter, hey, if you ever want to leave your husband, throw away your marriage and family, go ahead. We've got money set aside for you. The whole point of the prenup is to hopefully prevent her from divorcing him and taking his wealth. 70% of divorces are initiated by women. You're just undoing the insurance he had of keeping a faithful, loving wife. Now, once troubles arise, which they always do at some point, she'll leave him and destroy her family because mommy and daddy have set up a leave your husband and be a single mom instead fund for her. Nothing wrong with helping your kids, but actively encouraging the degradation of family, and you wonder why your son-in-law is upset with you. If I were him, I'd have his family go no contact with you, which includes his wife. He's the head of his household, and you are actively trying to destroy his family. You're the jerk. The way you put it across, you could have said, honey, remember that whatever happens, never hesitate to ask for our help because you'll always be welcome with us no matter the situation. Tact for these situations should be standard, especially since not only divorce is a potential issue, there could be a passing or any other reason she might need help. But if you specify it's just in case of divorce, it sounds like you're really anticipating her failure. Not the jerk. Good she has options. So many couples stay together because they can't afford a divorce. Her husband is a hypocrite, he has protected money to leave with, and for some reason, upset she also has some. Am I the jerk for telling my husband his fragile masculinity is costing us money? Back in late 2021, my husband Craig, who's 46, and I, female 44, welcomed our fourth baby into the world. As a result, we needed to upgrade one of our cars to something larger. We decided to trade in my super reliable Toyota RAV4 for something bigger since I was the one who drove the kids around the most. I was open and ready to embrace minivan life and was planning to buy something reliable and safe, like a Honda or a Kia. But Craig had his heart set on an SUV. In his mind, minivans were too feminine. So against my better judgment, we ended up purchasing a used 2018 Mercedes GLS 450, mainly due to his insistence. He argued that this car would offer similar space to the Kia and Honda minivans that I wanted, but with added luxury. Since it was priced like a loaded Honda van, we went with it instead. After 2 years, I can safely say we made the wrong choice. While the car does have good passenger space, it doesn't seem to have as much cargo room as the minivans. The reliability has been junk. The car has had 8 recalls during our ownership. Even when not recalled, it spends too much time at the dealership because something always seems to be broken. Some repairs have been covered under warranty, but we've still shelled out over $9,000, maintenance not included. The car hasn't even racked up that many miles. Below are just some of the annoyances. The shifting can be rough. Sometimes I press on the gas and the car barely moves, and when it does, it's jerky. For the past few weeks, the check engine light has been turning on randomly, and numerous electronic issues. Since the car's problems have stepped up in the past few weeks, I'm beyond fed up. I don't feel safe driving it around with my kids, and I've even started having nightmares about it stranding us in the middle of nowhere. Craig always downplays this and claims that it's normal for the car to have some issues. Making things worse somehow, Craig's sedan has started developing issues lately. It's begun to refuse to start some mornings and will sometimes shut itself off when it comes to a stop sign or a red light. On Saturday, I was supposed to drive our eldest to his soccer game and then take my younger kids to the doctor's office. When I turned on the Mercedes, it sounded very rough. The check engine light was on, and the temperature reading was extremely wrong. I don't bother risking it and end up Ubering with the kids. I told Craig about it that night. He listened at first, but when I suggested selling it, he cut me off and said that he wasn't getting a van just because I wanted that. It was so combative and defensive the way he said it, and because I was so tired from the day, I lashed out. We argued, it got heated, and I ended up saying, "Your fragile masculinity is costing our family so much money." In retrospect, maybe my tone was harsh, but he was being needlessly difficult. We haven't really spoken much since then. I'll also be Ubering to work this week since I won't be touching that car. Am I the jerk? And for those wondering, this isn't the first instance of his masculinity being threatened by something minor. He also refuses lip balm and purple dress shirts, among other things. I don't get it. You're the primary user of the proposed car, and he has his own. Even if you give in and call the car womanly, what's his insistence that his wife, presumably a woman, doesn't drive it? If his masculinity is affected by the kind of car he drives, I think it's not the car that's the problem. He sounds desperately insecure. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Reminds me of one of the scariest drill sergeants we ever had. The guy was huge and mean. You'd think he'd drive a big lifted truck or something like that, but no. One day we actually saw him pulling up in his very, very small Toyota Hybrid. I mean, I don't even know how the guy fit in that thing, to be honest. I gave my husband an ultimatum. Quit his job or I'm leaving. Let's preface this by saying that I love him. I don't want to leave him, but I can't keep seeing the man I love do this to himself for a company that doesn't value him. My husband got promoted to sales director last year, and we were very happy about it at first. But then his life, and my own, became horrible. The company is struggling and is dealing with numerous lawsuits from clients. My husband knew nothing of this when he was brought on as director. He works every single day from 8 a.m. and comes home late, even past midnight. Often he works full Saturdays as well. He has lost weight and his hair is already graying. One night he didn't come back home and I panicked. I called his company and they wouldn't tell me where he was. He reached out to me around midday and I learned he had been hospitalized for heart palpitations. Doctors advised him to take more exams because he risks a heart attack. He's just 36, but he looks 10 years older. His company uses him so much. I heard him talking to his bosses on the phone calls and the way these people talk to him. And he's too beaten down to leave. I'm friends with the deputy director. Funny thing, I suspected they were having an affair at first, but she became a great friend for me, and she's actively looking to leave. We tried to drill this into my husband to no avail. I've been polite, I've been rude, now I'm just done. I don't want to watch him do this to himself. I gave him the ultimatum, quit this job or I'm gone. He's worried about the money, but I work and I can be the breadwinner while he recuperates and looks for a new job. He seemingly took me seriously, but for now he has not quit. He has taken sick days, and he has really fallen sick now. I can't take this anymore. I love this man, and I can't keep watching him do this to himself. Update. I thought on it, and I'm convinced that if I leave, he might literally not make it, so I decided to take the situation in my hands. Tonight, his deputy director came over, and we drafted my husband's and her resignations. We decided to not submit them right away, but to use their emails and accounts to find proof of the company's mistreatment. They had him work 16 hours a day and pressured him to the point of giving him heart problems. Now he has taken sick leave and barely gets out of bed. He just sleeps, and I have to check that he's breathing because at this point, I'm scared he might pass in his sleep. The doctor said it's just a fever, but there's also physical and mental exhaustion, and he needs to rest. I wake him up to get him to drink some water or eat something. I have to help him get up and walk to the bathroom.
Tonight I made it clear that he's not going back to that job, and he agreed. His deputy director spoke with him too and told him hearsay is that the company is going to collapse and close down by next fall, so they need to get out now. There's not much to add. I spent the evening with her and we wrote the resignations and went through his emails, but we didn't find much. I broke down a bit and cried on her shoulder. I'm so bottled up, I needed to let it out. That's all for now. I wish to thank everyone who gave me advice and compassion for our situation. I will be taking care of my husband. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law her pregnancy announcement was jarring? My husband and I, 28 female and 32 male, have been together and married for 9 years. We just welcomed our baby last July, the first grandbaby of both families. Everyone was thrilled. Our baby receives a lot of attention from my husband's parents since we live around the corner from them. I have a sister-in-law, Cammie, who's 26. She loves kids and has voiced how she would love to have a baby. Cammie and her boyfriend have some issues. They always complain to her parents about how they can never afford things, leaving my in-laws to foot the bill, such as a lawnmower, getting their dog spayed, patio furniture, and a vacation to Mexico. There are a couple people that voiced concern about them starting a family. Her dad, my father-in-law, has been adamant about her boyfriend getting serious about their relationship first, putting a ring on it, before they think about having a kid. Cammie agreed, but stated that it will be a while before they got married as it would be expensive. Her sister, my other sister-in-law, has been hearing up and down about their issues and fights. It seems that every other week they are split up for a day or two before reconnecting. We hardly see Cammie's boyfriend as they usually get into a fight before she makes the trip over to where we live, so he doesn't come with her. A couple of months ago, Cammie asked me what I thought of her having a baby since she was lonely at home. I didn't lie. I said I didn't think it was the best idea since her boyfriend is hardly around, both work-wise and emotionally. Plus, they've only been together for a little over a year. Skip to last week. Cammie comes to visit us with her boyfriend. She gathers us all at the table for a family photo before her boyfriend says, "Say, Cammie's pregnant." As he takes a video, her sister, with a straight face, says, "Is this a joke?" Her father frowns through his smile and looks down at the ground. My husband shakes his head and walks away. I put on a huge smile and say, "Oh my gosh, congratulations." We all gather ourselves up to wish her congratulations, but there are clear bad vibes going on. She doesn't notice. Cammie, upon reviewing the video, texted me, very upset that her announcement video was a dud and that her family was not supportive. She was upset, stating, "How could everyone be so excited for me and not for her?" I told her that everyone might not be super excited at first, and that's okay. It's just a bit jarring to hear this news. Cammie name calls me and her family a bunch of jerks who don't respect her decision as a grown woman. Am I the jerk for telling her the pregnancy wasn't exactly wanted by everyone, or does she deserve the flack? Not the jerk. She got pregnant to fix her problems, which, of course, will only add to them. You see it, her father sees it, everyone sees it except for her. She'll never see it. You didn't tell her the pregnancy wasn't wanted by everyone. You told her everyone might not be excited at first, that's all. Not your problem though. Steer clear. Not the jerk. She's in for a rude awakening when her kid gets here. It will be so expensive and her boyfriend won't help. Tell her up front you can't help either. Neighbor likes to park in front of my house? Okay then. This happened a few years ago. My neighbor started parking on the street behind my car, like literally inches, for no apparent reason. My neighbor has a driveway, which is empty, and also lived 2 houses down the street. I don't have a driveway, so on-street parking is a must for me. So after a few weeks, I asked if it was necessary to park so close when there was literally no cars on the street for over 1/4 of a mile. He said, "No, but there's no law against it," with a big grin on his face. A few weeks pass by, and my car gets hit because someone thought there was enough room to clear as his truck blocked the view of the car entirely. I see this happen, but unfortunately can't get a model or license plate number. I find my neighbor's email address because I really don't feel like talking to him and asked him again if he could just park further down the road, closer to his house. He replied, "Nope, get over it." Okay, I had lived here for quite a long time and never had any issues with him or any other neighbors. I keep to myself, never make noise, don't have any noisy pets or parties, etc. His truck has his business name on it. I Google it, find out it's his own business. Lots of Yelp reviews, Better Business Bureau rating, etc. All these links point to his website. I go to check his website, it doesn't load up. I head over to Whois and see that the domain isn't registered. I snag it. Before I think of what to do with it, I Google the owner's name and find out that he's been convicted of a serious crime 28 years ago. I find a handful of links that detail his story. I copy and paste all those links into an email to him, a throwaway account, so he can't just reply to me as I deleted it afterward. Said something like, "Well, if you want to be a jerk for no reason, I just bought your business domain. Here's all the links I plan on posting on it. I don't have to list your business name because all your business listings across the internet have this URL pointing to it. Keep barking like a jerk. Yes, it's legal, but you are willfully doing it just to annoy me. I legally bought your domain and can legally link these articles. Park behind me again and I'll launch it." Within an hour, his truck was moved into his driveway. He asked me for the domain and I told him, "When either you move or I move, I'll hand it over. Until then, it'll remain offline." Have you ever had a neighbor you couldn't stand? If so, what were they doing? Please let us know.
One time, my neighbor forgot to smash that like button. I made them regret it.
Am I the jerk for wanting my girlfriend to tell her subscribers about me? So I started dating my girlfriend around a year ago. We're both 23. I just started a job recently, and my girlfriend does YouTube full-time as her job. I won't say too much, but she has around 1.5 million subscribers, and she plays games on her channel. Her income mostly depends on how many views she gets and how many people donate money when she streams. So the other day, she was talking about a creepy guy in her comments begging her on a date, and I jokingly said, "Well, did you tell him that you'll sick your boyfriend on him?" She sort of laughed and said, "No, my YouTube personality always remains single." I had never heard this before, so after asking her about it, I basically learned that her entire following doesn't know she has a boyfriend and she's never even mentioned me. Now, I know this isn't a matter of privacy because she's talked about her friends in detail on her channel before. Honestly, I'm a little offended. I didn't know she was doing this and thought that her subscribers were at least aware of me. We got into an argument about it, and while I know she makes her money from this, I feel like she hid from me that her internet personality is always single. Am I the jerk for wanting her to tell her subscribers? Edit. So we had a discussion about it. I told her it bothered me that she hadn't told me about this earlier, and she admitted she had kept it hush for a while because it was a straining thing in her last relationship too. I apologized and told her I didn't want her income ruined, which she accepted and said she'd be more open about her YouTube channel with me. I get her in real life, so that's all that matters to me. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I dare you to try to keep me a secret, Mr. Reddit. Our love is so pure.
Tricked insurance company into paying like they're supposed to. The insurance company that my employer uses has a monthly auto-deducted payment that comes from my credit card. I've paid faithfully for 4 years. A few months ago, the company went to run my payment, which declined because my credit card had expired. I had the new credit card, but the payment was attempted before I got around to changing it over. Rather than contacting me to let me know that a payment was missed and attempt to get an alternate payment, the insurance company just terminated my coverage and denied all new claims to the account, including my well visits, etc. As soon as I realized what was going on, I called the company customer service number from my card to give them my new card number and reinstate my insurance. After 30 minutes of giving my information again, explaining and re-explaining, and finally just asking for a supervisor because the CSR was reading random selections out of a book or something and wasn't anywhere close to my issue, I discovered it wasn't even the right department. Got transferred to the correct department where the woman rudely told me that, due to my incompetence, they terminated my coverage and would not be reinstating it. So I asked when I would be able to re-enroll and was informed that I would not be able to re-enroll until my company entered open enrollment, sometime unknown between January and March. I decided to let it go and just wait until then, until I had a necessary medical issue come up where I absolutely needed it. I called again and asked when open enrollment would be. They didn't know, but she mentioned, unless you have a major life change exemption, such as a death, a marriage, or divorce, or
loss of previous insurance coverage.
Me. Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to report a loss of previous insurance coverage. Not only was my insurance coverage started again, but was backdated to an effective date of when I started 4 years ago. Guess they'll be paying my bills again then. Edit for clarity. Wow, this blew up quickly. Inbox overload, so trying to answer some common things here rather than reply to everyone individually. A. I do receive notices from my insurance company by mail, email regularly. I check both daily and keep a well-organized inbox. I did not receive a notice that my plan was being canceled. Maybe they were supposed to, but they didn't. My notice came when I got a statement following a bill and it was marked as declined due to termination of coverage. B. Yes, it is a credit/debit deduction. Yes, it's perfectly legal and I've been doing it for 4 years. No, not every company has to do a tax-sheltered payroll deduction for every aspect of the insurance company's plan. I would be happy to provide a photo of their sign-up page that tells you outright how it's to be paid. C. This insurance company can use a code from the previous coverage or employer's certification. Since it was the same company that terminated my coverage and they already had me active in their system for other plans, I didn't have to send anything in and she was able to copy it all over, put a code in, and reinstate the policy. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that defending another woman against me is disrespectful? Obligatory, this happened last month, but I'm still pretty irritated about it. Not sure if that's the best word for what I actually feel, but oh well. Betrayed, I guess. So, I got into some pretty childish social media drama last month. It was nothing that I personally started. I had commented on a friend's post who had just had a breakup and was just offering support. Well, some woman that I don't know and have never heard of messaged me in response to my comment saying, "Don't give out relationship advice when your own relationship is trash," or something to that effect. Like I said, I had no idea who this woman was. So all I responded with was, "Who are you and what are you even talking about? My relationship is great and I wasn't forcing advice onto anyone." She never responded. So I showed my husband the message and he immediately gets weird. Apparently, he knows this woman from years ago and she is a really nice person, so someone must have hacked her account because she would never be mean or rude. The thing is, he only hung out with her twice, nearly 12 years ago, and spoke to her once online since that point, so he truly does not know this woman at all. So I simply asked him why he was trying to defend a woman who had reached out to me being nasty, instead of defending and taking my back. His response was, "I just don't think that it's her. I really don't." He then messaged her himself and asked her if it was her, and she said, "You know me just about well enough to know that I wouldn't say that. My son was using my phone. It was probably him." Her son is 9. I creeped, so I called BS. Anyways, he continued defending her, so I told him that it was extremely disrespectful to me that he is defending this woman and turning his back on me when I had done no wrong. He says I'm the jerk for not dropping it and that she said it wasn't her, so it wasn't. He also said, "Just because I married you doesn't mean that I can't defend another woman. I don't always have to agree with you," which was not the point I was trying to get at, obviously. Am I the jerk? To include, it reeks of affair, I know, but the woman lives 6 states over, so that's impossible. Update. His work tablet just pinged and her chat had just popped up. Apparently, she saw this post. He has responded to her and they are still talking. I will update with the conversation in a second. So far, he has my back. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
We're gonna need some popcorn, Reddit boy. This is getting juicy.
Return your daughter's Christmas present and give me the money, because we're family. Hey Reddit, prepare to lose some brain cells. It was about 3 years ago. My partner and I wanted to get our daughter a really nice gift for Christmas, so we saved up to get her a DS Lite and a couple games. I was on the phone with my sister a little after New Year's. Sister: "Hey, can you lend me some money? I don't have any food and I don't get paid for a whole week." Me: "I can probably lend you a tenner. Just pay me back when you get paid." Sister:
"Oh, okay. Any chance you could do a bit more? I literally have nothing."
Me: "That's all I can give you, sis. Sorry." At that moment, my daughter asked me to help her with something on her DS and if we could go to the shop to spend her Christmas money, £15. Sister:
"Aw, is that my little niece? Tell her Auntie says hi and I love you."
Me to my daughter: "Auntie says hi and love you." To sister: "Yeah, had to help her with something on her DS and she wants to spend her Christmas money." Sister:
"Oh, so you do have more than a tenner. You can send me more."
Me: "What? It's not my money, it's my daughter's, so no."
"Come on, I know my little niece would like to help her auntie."
Me: "I said no."
"Well, you can always get a refund for the DS and give me the money. It's not really an essential thing anyway."
You know those moments in movies where they pull the phone from their ear and just stare at it? I had that moment. Me: Why the heck would I do that?
Because you're my big sister, and it's your responsibility as family.
Me. So, I should get the money back that partner and I saved for daughter's Christmas present and give it to you? I don't think so.
But you have to.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You need to give me money for food.
No, I really don't. I offered to lend you a tenner, and you had the cheek to tell me you should get my daughter's money? Seriously? You are so ungrateful. Sister.
Oh my God, whatever. I'll just starve.
Cuts off the call. Sir, I'm not your employee. You can't fire me. The cast goes like this. We've got me, we've got my friend, we've got mother, we've got kid, and the manager. This anecdote arose a year ago. I was leaving high school with my friend, and it occurred to us to go to a shopping center that was about 15 minutes from school. When my friend and I arrived, we saw a new sports store. We went to see the football helmets. We both play football because I wanted to improve my equipment to a more recent one. I stayed in the store while my friend told me, I'm going to find something to eat. If you don't go soon, there won't be anything left for you. So I tried to hurry by choosing one of the models, but then a mother with their son approached me, asking me questions about which model is better. I was already in a hurry to go eat with my friend, but this woman brings her son closer to me. He asks if I can help him try on some things. I don't know why, but I agreed. This boy was very thin and pale, so I asked him, Me, what position do you play? Kid, I don't know yet. It's my first time playing football. Me, oh, I understand. By your physique, I suppose they will make you a cornerback or receiver. Let me show you some things that will serve you. Kid, are you a cornerback? Me, no, I'm a linebacker, but I have played in most positions. I finish showing them some accessories and then go back to their mother. She gives me everything back and says, Thank you very much. Can you take it to the cashier and charge it to this card? Me, I'm sorry, lady, but I don't work here.
Of course, you helped us in everything.
Me, it was simple kindness, lady.
You're lying. How can you treat us like that? Bring your manager.
Me, lady, I repeat that I am not an employee. The lady was yelling a lot, to which the manager turns her chair. Yes, this idiot was always on his phone behind a large desk. Manager, what's happening? Just charge him and that's it. Me, I'm not an employee. You should know it since you're the manager. Manager, you know what? Get out of my store. You're fired. This guy was always on his phone. He didn't even turn to see me. Me, I'm not going to go. I haven't done anything. Security, get this guy out of here. A security employee approaches me and tries to push me. I was bigger than him, so I dodged him, making him slip. This guy gets angry and calls the mall supervisor. This guy arrives and asks what's happening when the mother intervenes.
This kid is a liar. They fired him and he got very aggressive.
The supervisor looks at me, says that my uniform is from school, not from the store. Everyone is silent, and the guy asks to see the security cameras since he doubts that I've done something wrong. When they see the video, they realize that I had entered the store first, and then I helped the kid. In the end, it shows how the manager does not even turn to see me and that the security guard tried to push me without reason. The manager kept apologizing to me, repeating that he had a 50% discount on my purchase. The lady was very sorry for yelling at me, and the security guard was fired. He had already had some incidents of unnecessary violence recorded. But the worst part was that I didn't get a single piece of KFC chicken that my friend bought. Speaking of KFC, what's your favorite place to get fried chicken from? Please let us know.
Please don't make me choose just one. Fried chicken, yes.
Am I the jerk for keeping my ex-husband's last name after I was asked to change it? I've been married once before. My ex and I were a couple for 9 years and married for 7 of them. We have 3 kids together, ages 11, 8, and 6. I kept my husband's last name after we divorced. We're still friends, and it was too much of a hassle to revert to my maiden name since I had already graduated college and started my career with my married name. I also like having the same surname as my kids. My ex has never cared before, nor does my current boyfriend. However, my ex recently became engaged to his new girlfriend, together less than a year. I've met her only a handful of times, but she seemed nice enough, and my kids haven't voiced any issues with her, which to me is the most important thing. So I was shocked when out of the blue, she contacted me a few days after they announced the engagement and asked that I revert back to my maiden name. I literally laughed out loud when I read her text. I didn't think she was serious at first, but she was. Her reasoning is that since my ex will have a new wife, it would be wrong for me to keep his name. I essentially told her, no way, although a bit more tactful. My ex then called me and asked that I at least consider it since it's something his fiancée really cares about and that it's not, technically, my name anyways. I let him know I wasn't going to go through the headache of changing it again, but if they were so concerned about names, he should take her surname. My ex said I was being petty and asked me to just please think about it. I would have been happy to end it there, but I got another message from his fiancée, which was basically a thinly veiled legal threat about suing me to change my name. I didn't bother to respond to her message. You can't make someone change their name, and I'm not concerned about some frivolous lawsuit at all. But I did screenshot what she said and sent it to my ex, telling him his fiancée needs to back the heck off, which he hasn't responded to. My boyfriend also thinks the whole situation is stupid and thinks I should just tell them both to buzz off next time they say something. I don't know if I'm being the jerk though. I get it's not my original name, but it's my professional one, plus my kid's last name as well. I don't know. This whole thing has been so ridiculous. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her ex's fiancé? Please let us know.
Speaking of last names, just what the heck is my last name anyway?
I hate standardized tests. There's a teacher in the high school I attend, Mrs. B, who taught English 9 for so long my mother was in her class. I've only heard good things about her, and none of them are unfounded. She's done a lot for the community. She loves working with students, she teaches with a passion, and she hates traditional tests. She's always been against the idea, but that never stopped the state from making a system that forces the teacher to teach a bullet list of items, and the students get tested on what they should know by the end of the year. In English's case, with an essay or one topic scored on citation, accuracy, and grammar. Fast forward to 2 years ago, when the state realized the tests didn't help scores any. Big shock, and said our local counties will try to replace the system with something new, which mine did. With a system that forces everyone to write an essay on one of 3 topics that gets scored for citation, accuracy, and grammar. Mrs. B rolled her eyes explaining this to my fellow students. When we voiced our concerns, Mrs. B made it clear that she didn't like it either and ended her rant with, "I'll figure something out." The first day of the couple of weeks we get to write the essay, she, as required by the rules, had to read us the directions and prompt. She went through everything like she was supposed to, but then she went back and called to attention one part of it, a sentence reading, "Once you open the Google Doc, the teacher cannot help you at all." She made very clear that we couldn't come to her for anything after we opened the doc. Then, after doing so, she walks to the front of the classroom and states, "So, if you don't open the doc and use the prompt I already showed you to write an essay on paper, I can and will help you with any questions you have." 5 silent seconds pass before she looks to the class and says with a smile, "I hate standardized tests." I didn't know this at the time, but she was only one of a group of teachers across the county who formulated, coordinated, and executed the exact same plan. Needless to say, every student under these teachers, including me, got our essays on paper to be revised before we opened the doc and submitted them, netting all of us high scores. The higher-ups caught wind of what happened, and they were angry, but no one in that teacher group ever got punished because they never broke a rule. The directions were worded much more carefully the next year, and the teacher group responded by finding and using another loophole instead. Talk of making a new system started again after that. Am I the jerk for being rude to my colleagues after they commented on my body and eating habits? I started at my job about 8 months ago, which requires me to go to 2 different sites, Site A and Site B. For the first several months, I was part-time due to an injury, and even after that was sorted, I still spent the majority of my time at Site A. The last couple of months, I started working much more at Site B, so I got to know the staff better. Because of that, I've started having lunch with several of them. This is where the issues have started cropping up. For some reason, they can't stop commenting on how I look or what I eat. For context, I'm a recreational bodybuilder, so I eat and look a bit differently than most other people. I've had several people look at me with clear disgust in their face and say, "Do you always eat so healthy?" when I pull out my lunch. Should be noted, I never comment on their food, unless it's to say it looks nice. Several also call my food dog food and say that it's gross. Another time, a colleague mentioned starting to go to the gym, and I offered to train with him, when another interjected that he would go to the gym if he wanted to be on some sort of vain and narcissistic trip. This is between the classical bits of making fun of how wide my shoulders are and accusing me of juicing, in a very herder meathead kind of way. It eventually became too much when we were having lunch 2 weeks ago. I pulled out some chicken and a bit of fruit, which again prompted the "Do you always eat so healthy?" remark. This then morphed into talking about how one girl vastly prefers chubby guys and thinks that my forearms are gross due to my visible veins, which then caused another girl to say that she likes guys with a bit of muscle, but that's too much. So I snapped and said, "You say that like I actually give a hoot if you find me attractive or not. Oh, sorry, could you lay out exactly what you find attractive in men so I can rearrange my entire life in the hope that you will find me attractive?" Since then, whenever I get a stupid comment, I say the same thing back reversed. They ask if I always eat healthy. I ask if they always eat unhealthy junk food. If they make fun of my wide shoulders, I reply, "Well, not everyone wants to look like an unbaked loaf of bread." This has caused some to go to their boss, accusing me of being rude, mean, and a bully, while others are not hugely bothered and understand where I'm coming from. I've got to sit down with their boss next week, but wanted to know what Reddit thinks. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his colleagues? Please let us know.
Speaking of the gym, you should really start working out, Reddit boy. You're starting to look a little pudgy.
The Awful Librarian. As always, all the names in this story are fake. For a while when I was a kid, and eventually a teenager, I lived in a small town near nothing. The heart and soul of this town was the local library run by an amazing lady named Hannah. Hannah understood the town was rural and poor and did everything in her power to cater to the town residents. There was no after-school program for the elementary school, so Hannah opened the doors of the library, even though the building was incredibly small. The nearest movie theater was miles on miles away. This took place when Netflix was only a DVD service and expensive for this town. So Hannah made sure the library had a huge selection of VHS and DVDs. Hannah would listen when us avid readers wanted to read a particular book and buy it. If the book was part of a series, she bought the whole series. Hannah also started a summer program that would have rivaled the free summer programs of any large town, and so many more things. Unfortunately, Hannah's mom got sick and had to move back home halfway across the country, and the library board hired a woman named Ruth Derrier. The board believed because Mrs. Derrier was from a town or two away, she would be a good fit for our community. Mrs. Derrier was not good for the library, in fact. Mrs. Derrier decided to purge all of the books and items from the library she deemed impure, such as The Lord of the Rings, the whole manga section, non-religious self-help books, and the majority of the media collection. Mrs. Derrier also reinstated library fines up to and including the fines that should have been collected years prior but Hannah had never cared about. Mrs. Derrier also demanded everyone under the age of 18 call her Mrs. Derrier, not Ruth, because respect. Though these were only a few things Mrs. Derrier did. To say the library fell apart quickly after Mrs. Derrier took charge would be a massive understatement. I loved the library and felt personally attacked, so I started a campaign to save the library. I begged, pleaded, and complained to my mother until she cracked and joined the library board and even eventually became the library board president. Mom was able to put a stop to Mrs. Derrier's purging. I learned how to operate the library's very poor website to make interlibrary loans and taught other people so we could read whole series and so on. Mrs. Derrier knew what I was doing and hated me for it, but I continued on. The only thing that Mrs. Derrier could hold over me by the end was that I was under 18 and my mom had taught me respect, so I referred to her as Mrs. Derrier. However, on my 18th birthday, a Saturday, I woke up early, got dressed, grabbed the books I needed to return, and walked happily to the library. I waited in line as Mrs. Derrier lost it on a few elementary school kids for returning books late and revoked a little old lady's right to use the library computers because she asked too many questions. When it was finally my turn at the counter, I said loudly and clearly, "Good morning, Ruth." All the color drained from Ruth's face, and then it got extraordinarily red, so before she lost it on me, the next words out of my mouth were, "It's my 18th birthday today." As news and stories do in small towns, what I had done got around quickly. It soon became a habit of everyone turning 18 to traipse into the library at some point that day and say hello to Ruth. The tradition carried on even after I moved away till Ruth quit several years later for reasons I do not know. I'm so sorry this got so long. I hope all of you are having a lovely day or night.
Do this next. Tap the video that just popped up on your screen. You won't believe what happens in that one.